Jus Riffin. Tuesday night, 8:30 EST. Know where we be? Jus Riffin. Special guest and tech and talk. A musicology. Jus Riffin. Coming to you live at the same time. Here every week. Jus Riffin. Jump in the room. Let's chop it up. It really ain't that deep. Jus Riffin.
What's up, y'all? It's another edition of Jus Riffin. I'm one of your hosts, Hefner. I got Cookie Rabinowitz in the building with me tonight. We also have a very special guest. Emmett Lee Stang is going to be joining us on stage tonight. I'm excited to talk to him. He's been on the stage with a lot of, legendary musicians, and he's a great musician himself. And I believe he plays multi-instruments. So we're going to get into it with him. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is another Jus Riffin. We do it every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Cookie Rabinowitz has been working hard, getting that 24/7 stream cooking on Jus Riffin on X. So if you missed any episodes and you're too lazy to go to YouTube to go watch it, you could just be on Twitter like normal and do your thing, and you could watch our past episodes. Hopefully you can catch up on some and go back and listen, because quite honestly, there's a tremendous amount of alpha that gets dropped every show, whether we know it or not. It just happens to be that way. So Cookie, how you feeling? What's good with you this week, bro? It's been a while.
Well, that stream it's been a lot of fun cooking that up, because it's just, I don't know, it's like make-believe producer, we're producing shit. And I know you have always been an advocate of like professional programming and like a network. And I think this might be our early incarnation of doing something like this. I think it's going to blossom. I have a feeling it's going to blossom into something that's pretty fun. It's already fun, but I love fun. And
absolutely, dude. Quite honestly, I think that, if you're going to do the show and you're not like, we're powered by Rug Radio. Well, Rug Radio, quite honestly, has not put together a station style format. And that's really pretty much due. We had Loxley on the show, and we had that discussion as well. But for the most part now, there's nobody really running it or heading that kind of department for Rug Radio. But what he mentioned that was really important was getting people to commit to actually doing their show consistently, and then being in a specific time slot. And then that show, then the station gets programmed. So we had that discussion, but look, you got to start somewhere. And by us doing it, I think that was just great on your part, quite honestly. That
it's a mutual thing. I just want to interject, because you always
you took the initiative.
But you always have this way of dropping these ideas, and then they since my brain is foggy, they'll hit me like a month later, and I'll be like, wow, that. I see how it all comes together. Like, I'm really fascinated and interested in all the geek stuff. Like, I'm a hack, and we talked about this before. I'm a hack, not a hacker. I'm a hack at the coding stuff, but I really love it, and I love the technology, and I love fucking with it. So any chance I get an opportunity to explore some new things that I'm not familiar with, it's always fun. And then, it always somehow seems that you come up with these ideas that spark, like, oh, I can jump in and try out this thing that I wanted to try. So it's cool. And another thing, though, I want to say about the streaming that really excites me is, I grew up, the first airing of MTV, like my cousins had it, and I saw, the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star. And maybe video did kill the radio star, but I loved that era, man. Schoolie D singing "I Can't Stand Rock and Roll," and the video, him in the pool hall, and Stray Cats, the Buggles.
So many, dude. So many.
Shit, dude, I love that shit. And it's nostalgic.
You got me thinking. You remember that song? I don't remember the artist, but that song, "I Lost on Jeopardy."
Yeah.
They had the with the crazy monster in the video and the Thriller. Yeah, dude. We can go on and on and on. They don't make videos like this anymore, where there was an actual storyline to the song.
But maybe, you know what? Maybe Jus Riffin might spark that era again. You never know. We might have from 4 to 8 p.m. nothing but breaking new videos from new artists that are making cool videos with their iPhones or whatever. But let's
like
bring it back because, you know, it's a feeling. You know, a lot of times I'll hear a song on the radio and it'll bring me back to that nostalgia that I love. And part of that nostalgia will be me visualizing the video of it, you know, and it's cool. It's just an additive, you know, it's not, you know, music. There was also beauty to music before you saw what the artists look like too. So I appreciate that because I was in that era too, when you would just stare at the album cover, you know.
radio goes way back, dude. Radio,
Yeah.
TV was radio. So yeah, you had to really visualize the acting, I guess, or whatever they were reciting at the time when they were doing TV, but on radio. So, and I think there's a called TV for the radio. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And just with that said, you know, we talked about this before, you know, way back, this is before both of our time, but you know, our parents, they used to sit around as a family and watch the radio. Like a radio show would be on,
right?
They would watch it. They would be there looking at the radio, like so.
Sit around the radio.
Now it's in our headphones, and we don't even see our family that's standing next to us saying, "You forgot to pay the electric bill." Oh, you know.
Oh yeah. So what's going on with you this week besides that? I mean, I think that's great. We got the streaming going, so everybody, you know, you'll have a chance. Plus, I want to welcome everybody who is tuning in on Abstract. Abstract is a new chain started by Luca Net and Luca Nets, and Michael Lee also is the co-creator, which we're going to have Michael Lee later on this month. We're going to have him on the show, and I'm excited to talk to him. But Abstract is a new chain, and it's a new place for you to watch streaming. You can interact and earn XP as well. And so, yeah, I want to welcome everybody for tuning in on Abstract as well as YouTube and X. So thanks for hanging out with us. But so talk to me, Cookie. What else besides, you know, getting the streaming going for, you know, for that? What else has been cooking with you this week?
Well, you know, I was asked to do in May, there's this benefit, or not benefit, it's a tribute to Quincy Jones, who recently passed. Mm-hmm. And I felt really honored. They asked me to perform a few of his songs at the Ardmore Music Hall in Ardmore. And it's something I'm really excited to do. And I will say this, it's a challenge because obviously Quincy Jones, brilliant composer, orchestrator.
Massive.
But I want to say, though, when I got a list of songs to do, I was like, I don't know. It's like, this is kind of, and I'm not saying it was difficult, but I'm saying it wasn't really in a lane that I necessarily felt comfortable performing in. But at the same time, I didn't want to totally bastardize it and make the stuff Cookie Rabinowitz because I want to pay homage to the master of Quincy Jones. So it was a bit of a challenge. I've been putting together some songs and blending enough of myself to where I felt comfortable, but keeping enough of the integrity of what his compositions are to where I wasn't going to make him turn over in his grave and come back and slap the shit out of me. So, and then one way I did that is my girl, Sue, she's an incredible singer. You know, she had the record deal and all that, you know, and so I conned her into doing it with me because the songs are a little softer, lighter, more playful than some of my stuff. So, and they also had female vocals in it. As a matter of fact, we're doing this one song that's Ray Charles and Chaka Khan, which is called "Good to You," and so she's doing.
Let me stop you real quick because I just hold that thought. Something really funny. So, you know, I use Waze sometimes for my navigation, and I got Chaka Khan giving me the directions. I just wanted to throw that out there. I forgot to mention that to you, but
that's awesome. I wish
too
she was
funny. She's like, just chill. You're gonna turn right. Patience. I'm like dying, dude. It's the best, dude. Pure Chaka.
I wish Chaka Khan would give me singing directions. I could
right. Exactly. But go ahead. So Ray Charles and Chaka Khan.
But you know, and that's another thing. So Ray Charles, you know, it's like Ray Charles to me when he sings. When I hear him sing, it's like, it's not really singing. It's me sitting in a room listening to a conversation from the coolest motherfucker on the planet. Like his voice is a conversation. It's singing and it's soulful, but it's just so real. It's so raw and it's so gritty. So obviously, like, I'm not going to try to sing it like Ray Charles, because once again,
Sure.
then I'd have Ray Charles and Quincy Jones coming out of the grave to slap the shit out of me. I can only take so
Yeah.
much, you know,
His
slap in the day.
Ray's voice is really rich, you know, and very, yeah, like you said, soulful. It's one of those distinctive. He's got a very distinctive voice, even speaking wise, like when he's not singing.
And it's funny because he in this particular song, there's so much of his this little ad libs that they're talking, you know, and they're cool because Ray Charles was fucking cool. Like, but me trying to say, like, you know, hey girl, or stuff like that, I'm not gonna sound cool. I'm gonna sound like, you know, I won't say it out loud, but
Retardio's cousin. You can
but
say it. It's all good.
But once again, it was an opportunity to really explore. And as an artist, you know, it's cool. Like, you know, you want to be true to yourself, but at the same time, I think it's always cool to step outside of yourself, because even if it's not comfortable and it's not you, when you come back to yourself, you have a little something extra, you know, and you still make it yours. So it was a really great opportunity. And I want to give a big shout out to Derek Dorsey, because not only did he book me to do this show, but this gentleman gave me my very first gig in Philly many years ago. So when nobody, you know, would give me a gig, you know, I was just there like, hey, I play guitar and sing. Yeah, like, who doesn't, you know? But this guy, you know, he was very cool, and he gave me my shot. And here we are so many freaking years later. And, you know, he gave me a call and he said, hey, come do this show. So I was really excited to pay tribute to Quincy Jones, and also to pay tribute to my man Derek, who gave me a shot, you know, and is still giving me shots. So God bless him, and God bless Quincy Jones.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Speaking of like covers, it's interesting, you know, because I was as I was doing a little bit of listening and research on our guest tonight, you know, he's done some covers as well, and it's like always interesting to me that when an artist does a cover, because I love when groups do covers. I love when bands or whatever do covers, but that make it their own, like individualize it, right? So, but without butchering it. I mean, there's some terrible stuff out there too, but you know, when it's good, it's good. It's like, you know, like they say, like pizza, you know, like my dad used to have a sign in the store and it was like, you know, pizza's like sex. When it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's still pretty good, you know? So I think, you know, when you're doing a cover, you gotta make it your own. So that way it's got that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? I want to comment on that, because, you know, where I DJ at, right at the corner of it, is this really cool spot called Vinyl. And the talent they have there, it's from everybody. Like, you know, like John Legend threw a private party there a couple months back, and they have like artists that like maybe that were like, they're not huge artists, but maybe an artist that was like on The Voice, like a runner-up winner will come in there, and then they'll have some nationals, but not really big. But then they have a lot of cover bands and singer-songwriter. I mean, not singer-songwriters, but solo cover artists and full bands. And to what you're saying, and I'm not shitting on them, but every time I walk by there, the bands sound, as far as their sound, it's impeccable and it's perfect. And it's just like the record, but they're playing to tracks. I don't know if they grab the stems from AI. And no discredit to their performances, because, you know, the guitar player will be ripping a solo when I'm walking by, like to, you know, grab a coffee or something, or the singer will be singing his or her ass off, and they're always incredible. But there's something about it that sounds like a CD, and if I go to see live music, I don't want to see. I want to see fucking the raw, you know?
Yeah, you know, we were I was at the pizza shop the other day. And, you know, they were playing some music and I'm like, it was like a Journey song or something. I'm like, and I heard right, I was like, that's not fucking Journey. I mean, they were trying really hard, but it was like they were playing it verbatim almost, like everything. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Then another song came on and I forget who the group was. And the song, I was like, that's not, what is this? Some karaoke shit? What is this, man? This is like annoying. So I like when the groups are individualized and they're, you know, making the song their own. There's a band called Fish. I tell you a lot. I love Fish, one of my favorite groups. And they play covers, but they make them their own. you know, and they actually do, like on Halloween, they play like the second set's a whole album of somebody. They have the fans get a chance to vote on what album that they want them to do, you know, during Halloween. But yeah, it's gotta be good, man. You know, I can't remember the song I heard from Emmett today. It was a cover that he was doing, and it was I got to go back and dig, but it's not on the top of my head right now because I got so many other things going on. But it was such a dope way that he laid out the song, which made it compelling for me to continue watching. You know, yeah.
Sure.
So
You know, quick little anecdote. You mentioned Journey. Emmett's last band, they actually did a track with Steve Perry from Journey, which is pretty rad. I'm sure he'll talk to us about that maybe. But
yeah, that was random. That was random. Me saying Journey, not anything to do with Emmett working with Steve Perry, but that's how things work.
Yeah, and you know, it's like, and another thing I did want to mention the tracks thing too. Like, I think tracks are cool, and I've experimented with them. I ended up
real quick, because we're musicians, and musicians are going to understand what you're talking about. But explain to the audience that may not know what tracks are. Can you break that down for them?
Well, first, for sure. So, like, sometimes when bands are playing in a club setting or a venue setting, major venues, major artists, they supplement the live performers to playing with pre-recorded tracks. Now, they've been doing this forever. Like in the 80s, they were doing it, or they would even have like a keyboard player behind the stage that had a sampler, and it would fly in the harmony vocals, so they're really big. And before there was all this new tech, they would use DAT players. And they've been doing it for years. And there's nothing, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Unless it's on a CD.
No, unless it's on an 8-track, you know, unless they're streaming it from Spotify,
or unless you're Milli Vanilli. Okay, yeah. But go ahead.
But there's nothing wrong with it. They supplement their live sound with it, and it can be done tastefully and it can be done cool. And at the end of the day, we say this as well as we say at the end of the day, but there are no rules. Like, you're the artist, you're the creator, whether you're playing covers of your own music, because a lot of original bands. But I will say this: I saw Weezer about 10 years ago, maybe less, and they had 2 opening acts, and one of the acts was Panic at the Disco. And when I tell you, the front man was friggin' off the chain talented, super amazing, doing backflips, singing Freddie Mercury. They covered Bohemian Rhapsody. But with that said, their whole set sounded like a CD. And I caught vibes like he kind of ran the show, and he probably, but the whole thing was to tracks. And it was an amazing show, but it sounded like a CD. It literally sounded like I was listening to a compressed CD. And then when Weezer came on, the guitar player, like third song, and he fucked up the solo, but it was fucking amazing. It was a live band, and they were totally both. The point I'm trying to make is both scenarios were awesome, but in different ways. So I'm not mad at either one of them. But what I found out through my journey as a performer is I attempted a few months back to work with tracks because I want to do a lot of solo gigs and I want to offer variety to my show. And I put in my due diligence. I did a lot of work with tracks and I put them together, and it's not for me. And the reason for me why I don't like it is because as soon as there's something laid out, I'm following that.
Right.
When I play a Cookie Rabinowitz show, everybody follows me. I don't follow a fucking track.
Speaking of following, make sure you guys follow us on Jus Riffin on Twitter, J6C6, and your boy.
So, like with that said, you know, it's like for me, like I'm kind of a little aloof when I play, but it's part of the magic, I believe, that I bring. So the band I play with, they're very good.
Let me ask you something. Okay, so you're on, because like you just mentioned something, right? So you mentioned, you know, that the tracks aren't for you, and I would say, yeah, the tracks cannot be for you. That would be weird because you like to solo, you like to have, you need to be in control, especially the type of musician that you are. I would say like bands like, you know, I don't know, Taylor Swift, New Kids on the Block, where nobody is there, no one's soloing, there's nothing crazy unless it's, I mean, I shouldn't say that it couldn't be useful, but it would have to be just produced. But then at that point, you're on a time thing, and you know how that goes. And when you're playing music, I think as a real musician, you want to be able to, you know, Scooby-Doo every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? You want to be able to get loose and freestyle and flow with the music. I mean, can you imagine like the best bands in the world like using tracks like that like imagine Van Halen for instance or Led Zeppelin? It wouldn't fly. It could not fly.
Well, I mean, I want to interject because I can imagine great, amazing bands using tracks. But the reason why it didn't work for me is because I think part of the charm when I play is a little bit of my instability. And these are things, and I'm not comparing myself to Jeff Beck in any way. He's one of my, one of the greatest all-time guitar players. But one thing I loved about Jeff Beck is he had such command over his guitar, but he never sounded the same every night. You would catch a magical performance if you look on YouTube, a totally stellar, and then you catch a performance where maybe he wasn't on. But that's kind of the beauty of what he was. So, but I think I'm similar in that way to where I'm unpredictable as an artist, but I think that's my strong point. And I also want to relay it back to in Miami when I was just experimenting with playing with tracks then, and I planned this whole thing out, and I went there, and it was my first time trying to play with tracks, and I pushed it, and the song started a half step out of the key that I was playing it in. And the reality is, if I went out there with nothing but an acoustic guitar and my voice, I know I would have crushed it. But instead, I overthought it, and I tried to bring something, and I ended up, and it's okay because, you fail forward and you learn. And that was actually a pinnacle experience, which had me kind of reevaluate my plans for solo performing. And now I got it down, dude. Like I'm still using looping, but I'm creating the loops on the fly, and I can stop them, start them, switch another section, but I'm not just running the tape. And running the tape is where I get into trouble because 90% of the time I forget what was on the tape, So it's like, so if I'm trying to perform what was on the tape, I don't even remember what it was, even though I wrote it and played it, so I just can't do it like that.
Yeah. Speaking, you mentioned Jeff Beck, an amazing guitar player. I was randomly, you know how you just go down that, what is that? They call it doom scrolling, And so I was on, I think maybe YouTube or whatever, and just watching, looking for new music, looking for, I was watching WWE, I was watching NASCAR, Formula One, I'm all over the place when I'm on YouTube. And I saw, rest in peace, the Queen of England was being introduced to like Brian May, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck was there. Oh, Jimmy Page.
Wow.
And it was just incredible to see the Queen. First of all, like she had no idea who they were. No idea, right? She was like shaking their hands, but it was incredible because to me of the presence of her presence that you could see in the sense that we'd be like, holy shit, it's Brian May, Eric Clapton, and Jeff Beck, and you'd be like, and Jimmy Page, you're like, holy crap, like the gods of guitar are all here. And the Queen didn't even know who they were. I was like, wow, the energy that was flipped the other way, just amazing. But like, I don't know, like, I don't even know what they were there for, but I just wanted to bring that up because I happened to just watch it the other day. But it was incredible to see that they met them and they were like little kids. Like instead of like, how we would be meeting them, like, holy shit, they were like that to her. You know what I'm saying? They were, yeah, like she was the guitar player.
Wow. Yeah, that's badass. It's cool, man. I mean, and that's another thing about the tracks thing too. Like we're talking about a live appearance. Like there's something magical about the energy of the human body in a room with other human bodies. And, that's how magic happens. And that's how, you get the vibes and the energy going. And I think tracks, if they're used as a supplement, can add to that. But if they're the anchor, I think it's an anchor that's in a bad place. It's an anchor that is in pre-recorded shit. But when we're live, let's make it live,
Make it live, all the way live. That's what I say.
But with that said, every band and their mother uses tracks these days. So definitely no shade on that. And it is cool. Like I see bands that use it in very interesting and creative ways. It's but once again, like for me, I was kind of stuck in the push play to it and stop it, and it didn't work for me. So I just moved on.
Yeah, you remember that band that I showed you? The drummer was doing the POV, and you remember that? I did it on the show. I forget the
that was really cool. That was
so he also explained in his ear like what he hears. And for the most part, like I know you were saying tracks. I have a friend of mine, Kevin, and I mentioned New Kids on the Block, but he does that stuff sitting behind the stage with the machines, for like Cyndi Lauper, for like New Kids on the Block, and countless other musicians he works for or works with as well. But I just lost my train of thought. Jesus, senior moment, bro.
Stop saying that, dude, man. I don't like any of this ageism shit because I'm old as fuck. And
dude, it's funny how many senior moments I always like, dude. If I say I limit myself, you got to have just one senior moment a day is okay if it happens, like, and it's weird saying it too because we're not old, bro.
Well, I don't ever think of age at all. And I think that's the secret. I think of how I feel. And I can honestly say physically and mentally, I feel sharper today than I ever have in my previous time of my life. And I feel blessed for that. And I hope it keeps going. I'm humble about it. I don't take it for granted. I ate a bowl of oatmeal right before the show started.
Was it lumpy or was it smooth?
It was lumpy as shit, man. I'll give you a quick breakdown. Oatmeal, blueberries, walnuts, some flax seeds, some chia seeds, and a little bit of protein powder in there, and some goji berries. And basically, it was like eating I guess it was like eating a piece of leather. But
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I want to let everybody know I am not old, but my co-host is old because only old people really eat oatmeal. Just did you grind it all up, or was it like the full blueberries, and were you chewing on the walnuts and stuff, or was it
what I do is I pour it all in a bowl. I pour and then I pour 2 scoops of water, and then I mix it all up. I let it sit so the chia seeds get it really lumpy, and then I heat it up. And it you know what? It's a bitch to clean the pot afterwards, man. Like the pot, it's like I may as well just buy a new pot every day and throw the old one away because it's like I'm scrubbing it. Like that's why I was late jumping into the room because I was like, the oatmeal takes me 5 minutes.
Oatmeal took priority.
Well, the oatmeal takes 5 minutes and eating it takes 5 minutes, but scrubbing the pot takes like 10 minutes. It's like it's not a good. The juice ain't worth the squeeze on the pot. It's
amazing, bro. We're learning about oatmeal and how to deal with the pots and the pans and how to actually get it together. And goji berries making it lumpy. I like it. Like I'm learning here.
Shout out Boss Man D-Lo. Mr. Pot Scraper. You hear that song? That's like a hot one in the club right now. Not right now. About 2 months ago it was.
It's a song?
Yeah, Boss Man D-Lo. He's very big in the club I DJ at. And his song is Mr. Pot Scraper. That's what it's called.
Before we get into it with Emmett, because I want to bring Emmett up. He's sitting patiently in the green room and listening to our nonsense. So I sent you this thing I came across today. It was like a puppet, and it was Trisha Code. At Trisha Code, you should check this out. It's pretty funny. Now that's all AI. What do you? Wow. That's all AI. I'm almost positive that's all AI. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay. I saw the video and it made me laugh, but I didn't know that.
Okay, there's songs like the AI songs that it's just too funny. I want to play it, but we'll do it another time, or maybe towards the end of the show. But one of the songs is like I'm gonna keep going until you stop AI. It's funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's Emmett.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, I'm gonna let the honors go to you, my friend, on bringing our guest up. So I'm excited to talk to Emmett, but go for it, Cookie.
I'm really glad you're because usually you introduce the guest. I'm really honored to introduce our guest tonight because I had the privilege of seeing this kid. He's not a kid now, but he was a kid when I first met him. Probably the coolest family, one of the coolest families I've ever been around. They're all super smart. super creative, also super just nice human beings, like over the top nice. And we use child prodigy a lot. And like I said, he's not a child now, he's a full grown man. But when I knew him, he was a child prodigy. And if there is a definition of the word, he definitely was. And I remember sitting in his studio in his house, and I would always try to ask him little things, because even though I'm much older than him, he always like, hey, Emmett, like, I'm trying to sing this vocal inflection, but I can't do it. Like, how do you do that? And, you know, he would give me little tips. And he is a fucking beast. Like, I mean, he doesn't show any of this. It's funny because I've seen little bits and pieces, but he doesn't let it all out of the bag. But I've seen this dude fucking rip jazz piano. I've seen him. He played drums. We did an old an impromptu recording of one of my songs many years ago. And just for fun, in his studio, my friend Kevin played bass and he played drums. Now, keep in mind, I didn't really even knew he played drums at the time, but he's like, yeah, I'm going to play drums on this tune. He fucking slapped the shit out of these drums. And I've seen him from the limited time I've had around him. I've seen him do it all. Fucking dancing, singing, rip guitar. My first introduction to him, he was in a 3-piece band called Stang. My friend Kevin played bass, and actually the drummer that plays with me to this day, Jimmy Coleman, is the drummer that plays with me, was the drummer that was playing with him at the time. It was a 3-piece band called Stang with Jimmy Coleman on drums, Kevin Vecchione, shout out to Kevin, greatest fucking bass player on the planet. There is no such thing as better or worse musicians, except for Kevin. He's the greatest musician on the planet. Deal with it, everyone. Let's
bring him up, man.
Well, these guys had a 3-piece band called Stang, though, but it was like the trio thing, and he was just like ripping guitar and doing rock tunes. And since then, he's just done the gamut of all kinds of shit. He's done some acting. And let's bring him up because I want to hear.
Yeah, let's bring him up, dude. Let's bring him up. You're going to give his whole story away, and then we can't even talk to him. Emmett, what's going on, buddy? Welcome to Jus Riffin. How's everything?
Man, doing great, baby. What an intro. My face.
Yeah, what an intro. Hell yeah, bro. All right, well, that's enough time. That's all the time we got. Emmett, thank you for.
Hey, love you guys. Thanks for the call.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, welcome to Jus Riffin, dude. Pleasure to have you here with us. I've watched some videos of yours, and like Cookie was giving you, bigging you up, on drums and playing all these instruments. You have a new song called Angel. I watched a video, really cool. And it brought me to another thing, someone else similar. I don't want to bring them up because this is your time, but that was actually playing multi-instruments. And I was like wowed by that because I think that's amazing. Take us, first of all, explain to us, the journey of you being a musician, from what Cookie was talking about, being a young dude to like being this multifaceted, multi-instrument, musician. Like, how do you get to that point? Like, what takes you there?
Yeah, I guess if I got to reach back into all the memories and think of the first things, I think that would help set it up. So I'm thinking there are two things that stand out to me. The first one is, I think it's the first memory I have of music, which is kind of cool. We were still living in Toronto at the time, and I'm maybe 2 years old, around there. If I think that I'm right there. And we were in our front room, like the living room in one of our places. And I remember hearing the opening of Don't Stand So Close to Me from Zenyatta Mondatta, The Police. I remember, and that beautiful young teacher, the subject. And I was like, what the hell? You don't, at that age, you don't know what you're listening to. You're just like, damn, that's some cool shit. Immediately. That's one, in terms of just like music as like having an impression of music, like right out the gate, there's something beautiful, something mysterious, this melody. But apparently I don't remember this one. I actually was listening. I guess we listen to everything as a family. On the weekends, especially when we're all together, like I grew up listening to classical music all the way to like flamenco, to Joni Mitchell, to Hendrix, to, you name it. It was happening. And, I'm in a family where good is good and it doesn't matter what it is. So apparently we were listening to classical music. And again, I'm like pre-3 years old or something like that. And I don't remember this, but apparently my folks say that there was a classical piece of some description playing. And I said, what's that instrument? And they're like, that's a violin. And I was like, oh, I want to play. I don't remember saying it, but before long, I started training as a classical violinist. So
Wow.
that's really, which is kind of funny, given like what I'm doing now. That was really my introduction. Classical music, violin, drums actually at 5, piano at 7, guitar came a little later at 11. And as soon as guitar started getting into the works, the violin was put away.
Tucked away.
You know?
Have you played? I mean, can you still pick it up and jam on it?
I
No.
doubt it. I mean,
No.
I could maybe like play some bitch and bar chords. I don't know, probably. But to like really go, no, I doubt it. But and then singing a little bit later, I'd say 13 or so, my dad was like, you got to sing. And I was
That's
really
awesome.
I was very, I had never an issue performing. Like since I can remember, anytime there was anything like a school play or a talent show or something, I was the first little ham.
Let me stop you. Okay, so I had an experience similar when I was younger as a young boy. I always felt like I was entertaining. And so I would perform for the family. Did you do this? Did you come out like, and your parents, your mom, your dad, the grandparents, and everybody was there? Did you perform for them as a little kid? Did you experience that?
Funny you should say. I remember me and my sister, she's also another one of these multi-talented people. We were really digging, what record? I think it was Sgt. Pepper's. Yeah, it just, that happened to be a record that we were getting way into, and I'd be like, hey, I want to be Paul and John, and you can be George Enrique or whatever we're doing. But at one point, I think I was Ringo, but I didn't have a drum set yet, so this is pre 5 years old, I think, or around there. And so I took some pens and some tin cans and shit, and so we were like going through the, trying to figure out how to like do a choreographed version of Sgt. Pepper's. I mean, it's a little ambitious when you don't even know how to like what a C chord is, but we thought it was cool apparently. And I think we actually staged it, to your point. We staged it for our folks. We're like, okay, guess what we have? We got some, like little kids think it's the best thing ever, when it would be great to see the footage of that, because that was probably pretty rough.
But so much fun though. But like I'm Jewish, so we use the word chutzpah. That means like you got spunk. You're like, you're a go-getter. You're there. So it takes a lot of chutzpah, to get into that position, to actually to do it. And like you said, you feel comfortable, always felt comfortable performing. I think, this is like usually when you're young and you get these intuitions, like, you like even just learning the violin and then drums at such a young age, that's a God-given talent, I believe. You practice and you studied along the way, and that's gotten you to this point. And you put the hours and you put the time in, but you have that from somewhere. It's not like you woke up at like 20 and you're like, I want to go be a musician. You're doing this at a young age, and I think that's amazing that you stuck with it and you stay with it. I want to ask you about the singing part, because like you said, your dad told you should sing.
Yeah.
I was listening to the cover. I was listening to Angel also, and I'm like, it's hard. It's being a musician, when someone's like all over the place or whatever, but dude, your range is like really, really awesome. And I heard some notes that you hit that it was unexpected, some like, I don't know what you call them because I don't sing. I wish I could, but up and down. When you knew that you could sing, because I wish I could sing, but when you knew that you could sing, were you singing all the time? Were you like, just like, hell yeah, and just,
Well, that's interesting, because there was a point, not as early as you may think, like when a singer, at least from my perspective, I'll speak for myself, like the voice that I use now and I'm comfortable with, that took time to develop. And that story about my dad encouraging me is interesting, because like I said, I had chutzpah. I could go out, I could do anything, but singing freaked me out. It did.
Wow.
That was something I thought. Also, my voice was changing,
Okay.
But even but before all that, I wasn't really singing like some kids are already like singing. I would hear melodies and stuff, or I'd be, if I was learning like Crossroads or something, I would want to like scat, but it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna sing for you. So my dad told me, come on, like, what was the tune I really loved? I was really heavy into SRV at the time. I was doing Pride and Joy, and he's like, you got to sing that. I was like, what? No, I don't. And and it's so funny. I'm glad he got me down that train, because to start when it was really the only thing that was uncomfortable about performing live, when I knew that's something I had to conquer, whatever this instrument is, or it's just the idea of singing, whatever it was. I actually trained with really what people call like the vocal guru out of New York, Katie Agresta, when I was 15. So not long after me just trying stuff out. Again, voice was still not really there, but having that, she gave me a lot of confidence. Also just psychological confidence. But
what does a vocal coach, what does she teach you? How is that come into place psychologically? And then how does she tell you where your range, you know, how does that come about?
Here's what's cool about her is that she never said, here's your range. And that was something sometimes I have a scientific mind. I like to define things less and less as I get older. I actually don't like to define shit. But when I was young and trying to figure stuff out, I was like, I want to know, is it this, is it that? And now I don't see that those lines are there, but she put in my mind the fact, don't think about your range. Never think about what you are. She said, if you can hear it, one day you'll be able to do it. And that, besides the kind of, she teaches these awesome techniques that they've been doing in Italy for opera for years, right? Probably since the 1800s, or like whenever opera was coming up, late 1800s.
Incredible.
But it's the psychological, it's like the spiritual element of being like, bro, if you want it, you can get it. And remember, she looked at this little chart of chakras. She's like a Reiki master, and she pulled out this chart of like the chakras, and she's like, when you listen to Zeppelin, all those chakras are lit up. You think about that, and I was like, I mean, there's like all this stuff hit me at the time, but what she did was make me.
I just want to interject. I just want to sorry to interrupt, but it's important. I'm just glad that she didn't say that when you listen to Celine Dion that happens, because that would have been a totally lame story.
I think Celine kicks it, man. She rips it up.
I'm sorry.
Well, it is, I mean, she was Katie's. She's from the hippie generation, but so like, if I start talking about Hendrix or Cream or Janis Joplin, and funnily enough, on a side note, she trained a young Cyndi Lauper. She trained a lot of people that came through New York before they were known, before they were signed. And she said Cyndi always showed up at her apartment going, "Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm just a little beat up with my phone." She's like, "What are you doing?"
Wow.
She's like, turns out she wanted to be Janis Joplin.
So she was pushing her voice.
Yeah. And then she basically trained her into having this like really strong, but her own voice. That's what's cool about Katie, is that she never tells you, okay, you got to sound like this or hit the note that way. She actually just gives you foundation training that works on your instrument. And then in the meantime, she's giving you love and encouragement to figure it out and to learn like, okay, I want this sound. I use these muscles and off you go. So that was for me, especially someone being like, I'm kind of an abstract learner. I'm not even though, like I said, I tried to define things when I was young, I really don't learn in a linear way. I never have. Like I'm kind of like a childlike mind. Things are like learning anything like jazz. I don't learn by going, oh, the chord's this and it's
right.
Like, no, it's like shapes and patterns and sounds and colors. It's like, and I have time I don't even know.
Sound and color.
Yeah.
I love that. I just want to chime in on. I love what you said about Katie Agresta as well, because I know several singers that that have had these amazing voices, and later in life they wanted to get study, and they've come out of studying, I feel, losing their voice, like technically more, but soulfully and spiritually less. And I think that a teacher that can teach you how to advance technically, but at the same time holding on to your true spirit and soul and your true voice, I think that should be championed. And God bless Katie Agresta, man. So
Amen.
That's awesome.
Amen to that, man. Yeah, that's her X factor. That I haven't trained with like a lot of coaches. She's the only one, in fact. And it was like a hardcore couple of years, I would say. By the time, I don't know, I was 17 or so, I had all these tapes back in the day. We had tapes of the lessons. And so I still use them today. But this, back to your original question, half of like feeling confident about singing, just doing it whenever, that came, I got to say, like that came later. I would say in like my late 20s is when I started being like, hey, maybe I can, start to do some of the things that I'm hearing.
Having a voice is like, okay, Cookie plays guitar. hard as fuck. I could, it's very hard. I took guitar when I was young. I play drums. I feel like drums, for someone that doesn't know drums, because you got to use all your limbs are going in different ways. But
Yeah.
singing is like an amazing gift, a tool to have.
Mhm.
And I just feel like once you know that you have that gift, that it just opens up, I think, everything. It makes you, I don't know, for me, I think the voice is the most important thing to the sound, especially when it's a group where there's a vocalist.
Yeah.
To be able to, singing is not easy, man.
Oh.
Singing is just not, because you got to know where to, you're like, how I say, like, you're extra percussion in the song, right?
Yeah.
So you're weaving in and out of the tones and the sound. It's just very, very difficult to do. I don't know why I'm on this rant, but because I just think being a vocalist is just really just amazing and so much respect. Not that I don't respect any other instrument in the band, but we're talking about vocals, and I think vocals are very strong.
Yeah.
What made you or encouraged you to get a vocal coach? Like, how important, I know we just talked a little bit about it, but really, 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 how, if you could just tell us, like, how incredible it was for you to get a vocal coach. And if you didn't have a vocal coach, what do you think would have happened? Where do you think you'd be right now with your vocals?
Yeah, it's a great question. Hard to say. I definitely know, being under my parents' wing still at the time, anything that I did, they always wanted for me to learn, to really understand a craft of something. And so that's always kind of like, for lack of a better term, it's almost like a bit of an insurance policy. Like, if you get just some kind of, they could tell that I was, totally in water in terms of being schooled, because I had violin lessons when I was 3. My dad said he remembers seeing me practice for hours. So he said that taught him that I had concentration. Some kids can't. Now, it doesn't mean I was always like that, like at school. I was a menace, but if it was music, I was able to at least focus. Gave me something to do. And that's definitely part of having a very Germanic family, like, be on time, be prepared, practice. That, I would say, besides the desire to do it myself, so I'm kind of it's like a twofold answer to this, but I would say really the training from my folks to really, really get something under your belt, and you, like, it's something that you want to do, you want to learn. That's a key thing, and that's maybe a bit abstract when you're younger, but man, do I see that as part of what I do now. That's all I do is practice, mainly performing, and then you get ready for the next one. But I would say, it's, for me, like, for the first time I heard James Brown or Little Richard, I'm like, I want that. What are they doing? I want to feel what they're doing, not just like sing the notes. It's like, there's a feeling that I get, especially a lot of that early stuff, early Motown soul music.
Yeah.
A Percy Sledge. I'm like, I want to feel that. I want to feel that in here, if I can, and whatever it takes. And I think there's a kind of a tenacity, regardless of your circumstance, your talent factor, or whatever, or your upbringing. Like, again, I was blessed to have very focused parents that would give me a lot of direction and support what I wanted to do. So that's a lot right there in itself.
That's amazing to hear it, because your parents knew that you were attracted to something, and you say it too, because this is the same. I feel like I can relate to that, because I played baseball in high school, but music was my real passion. So I fell out of, like, wanting to learn. I didn't have it wasn't encouraging for me. I wanted to just do music, but I didn't have the support. Yeah. You had the support, and it's so important to have supportive parents, especially where it's something that you want to do. You have some parents that'll push their kids because their kids want to play baseball, or they want to play soccer or football, and they're there for their children. It's amazing that your parents were there for you in that support that allowed you to feel like you had the freedom to now really go and tackle music, whether it was vocals, whether it was playing drums, whether it was the violin, whatever it was that you were doing. So hands down to your parents. Thank you, parents. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Stang,
Big time.
for doing your thing.
Right on. Yo, shout out to the
Thanks.
Stangs, man. I had the pleasure of spending some time around them years ago. Very cool
Yeah.
people, man. Very cool people.
That's awesome. Okay. So vocals are, and okay, I just get geeked out. Like I think, what's her name? Ariana Grande. Just, I don't know how you guys do it. It's like, I just don't understand how your ear hears, because I try to sing all the time and I'm like, oh, I'm terrible. I'm terrible.
Even in the shower, the shower,
yeah.
you're terrible though.
I'm terrible anywhere, in the car, in the shower, forget about it. I'm terrible to even someone who's deaf. I'm terrible, man. Yeah, I just think that the vocals are just incredible. Where do you, when you're writing a song, Emmett, when you're writing the song, because most words are like, it's like poetry, right? So, but where do you know where to put the words and where not to? And then where do you know with the melodies, like how do you structure your vocals?
The first thing, that's a beauty, because there is a little bit of a system to it. Even if it's in certain ways is hard to define as it's happening. But I'll give you an example. And Cookie knows all about this because he's a hell of a songwriter. I still remember that session you were talking about, by the way.
So
I love that tune. All those, we played 3 tunes.
Wow, I forgot.
And I remember one of the first gigs I think I had as a drummer was backing you up at the North Star Bar, if I'm not mistaken. We had a quartet.
Yeah.
Remember that?
No, it was Abilene's, I think it was.
Abilene's? Okay. Yeah.
Or maybe.
Yeah.
No, maybe it was. I forget. But
I mean, I don't know how Cookie does it, but like if you have any kind of beat riff, shit, you don't even need an instrument. But whenever you get some little feeling, it all comes from desire, I think. If I had to, the first step of anything creative is desire. I want this, I want that. You don't even know half the time, but it's like, I want this thing. And then something eventually starts to collect. But when you have a beat or you have a set of chords that you want to sing over, what I find is there is a melody that's talking to me that eventually gets revealed, right? And so if I'm like da 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 da, I mean that's just like a riffing. But if I hear something at all, like, and whatever it is, at first it's blah 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 blah. It's like vowel sounds, it's noises. But what I find is half the time those vowel sounds are kind of telling me there's a word in there. So it's almost like a stream of consciousness thing. Sometimes, at least at first, you're like, oh, I mean, Angel. That was like, oh, there's, oh, that was an easy one because of the vowel, but that's how it came, that one in particular. They're not always that easy, but it's definitely, the melody is kind of telling you what the song is in an abstract way. There's a story that the melody is. To me, this is how it works. And then you try to find ways to insert the words that fit your melody, not the other way around. Because I've been in sessions where people are, they're very worried about making things literal, and I find as a singer, and as an audience member too, it's almost like there's a disconnect. Like if you go, I need to insert this word here, I think you're going about it kind of upside down, or rather, you should be in that field of the song and figure out what it wants to say, and then try to fill it in. So like what I mean is not to be too intellectual. Like sometimes words don't make sense. If you write them out, you're like, man, that felt good, but what the hell does that mean? But I think that's cool. So I'm, at least in my style, I try to, as long as the words are obviously not so highfalutin that they're, freaking people out. Like they have to look up what the hell's that word. They could be simple words, maybe placed in a way that is maybe a little different. That's not like maybe something that you would hear on the street, or maybe it would be, or it's just something informal. But I find really it's the melody to cut it short. It's like the melody tells you what things want to be.
Okay, I want to pass the mic to Cookie because I always end up just riffing over here, just because my mind is like, hold on one sec, Cookie, because I gotta let me ask these 2 things, because since we're talking about this, and then I'm giving you the whole reins, you can ride off into the sunset with the microphone, all good. Okay, so two-part question here, because I don't want to interrupt you again. So one, since we're talking about this, is how do you separate the verse and the chorus? Like, how do you know? Now I write rhymes like rapping wise, and like you were saying, like I think in rapping it's okay to be a little abstract and to say some things that yeah, or like over here, and then it takes you a while to get over here as far as the rhyme goes. But with singing, I think it's a little bit different, right? So how do you separate the verse and the chorus? How do you know where the chorus comes in, and then how much of a change is the verse and the chorus when you're doing it? And then my second part of this question is, can any song be sung to? Can any song be sung to? Yeah.
Is that you, Cookie? Or is that me?
No, he's asking you.
Was that for me? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, right. So basically, yeah, I mean, I think like as long as something, whatever feels right, that's the whole name of the game. Like you said, like when you rap and you say something that like it just feels good.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the most important instinct to have as a creative person, because the minute you start thinking about, oh wait, should we, like who gives a shit? Like I think if like there are two little minds inside your head going like, do this, do that, but it's like that voice that just goes, no, I want this, I feel this, and then you got to go with that. Because anytime I have not listened to that, I always regret it. I'm always like, God damn, no, it was better before. Like, what am I doing?
I love that, man. I love that. That reminds me of and all this whole topic we're talking about reminds me of a few years ago, several years ago, Aerosmith, I guess they were making a comeback and they started working with a lot of outside songwriters, right? And I remember this song came out. It was, what was that called? But like one of the lines in it was, you used me up like money and then you hung me out to dry, right? It was a big hit of theirs. I forget the song. He's like, you used me up like money and then you hung me out to dry. But anyway, but I remember hearing it and being like, wow, you would think that would be used me up like laundry and hung me out to dry. But then you realize as a songwriter, and what to attest to what you're saying too, Stephen Perry probably saw that line. This is what I'm envisioning. I have no idea this is what happened. But some songwriter probably gave him this song, and with this line in it, you used me up like laundry and you hung me out to dry. And he was probably singing it in the mic and being like, used me up like laundry. This sound like singing laundry doesn't feel good. Use me up like money. That feels good. So even though the line makes more sense with laundry, it's cooler saying money. I don't know, but exactly. It's a similar type of thing.
But you also got money laundering. Just throwing that.
No, for sure. No, for sure. No, I know that, and I knew you were going to say something smart.
I'm always goofing, bro. Don't mind me, bro.
But you don't hang up money like laundry. You, I don't know. I have nothing to answer. I'll get him.
Like that's like a strong image. Like then you imagine like, because no one does that. Sometimes that's half the thing too, is just putting things in that are provocative, that are not common, like a bit of a shock factor. But in terms of like, when you said verse and chorus and separating those two, I always find if I have a hook, if I have a chorus, if I have a title, like finally, once all the like abstract schmutz finally is like finding something that is words that are sounds that are not just blah, blah, blah. Usually it's like, okay, what the hell is the title or what's the hook? What's the word or the phrase? When I have that, I feel fantastic, because if I know, okay, this song Angel was not this way, but had I known, okay, the song is called Angel, or I got the hook, Angel, oh my God. If I knew that right away, I would have felt even easier about writing the tune. Because for me, it's like working backwards. If you've got, there's so many tunes, if you think about it, when you hear the title, you kind of know, you hear the hook first. It's almost like verses, although they should be catchy too, sometimes they fall by the wayside to listeners, just in terms of like automatic recall.
I think because it's so long, right? The verses are longer than the chorus.
Yeah. So for me, it's like if you have that hook, and in terms of separating it, that's the fun part. Like no song is the same for me. There's some people that go, okay, verse is like 8 bars and then chorus is another 8. And then there's
right.
I don't do any of that shit. Like it's like whatever feels cool. Like Angel has this weird odd bar. There's like a pre-chorus. It has this like, it's like 2 or 4 bars. So the whole thing with the verse, it's like this odd amount. It's not like a perfect 16 before I blast the chorus. And I realized, no, I like that because it's abrupt, because it actually follows the narrative, and it makes it more suggestive, and there's more energy in that. And sometimes it's breaking those lines and not just following the usual set of rules. And that's a key thing too, is surprising the listener. So it's like you have to learn the basics of putting a song together to then toss the rules out and then to find something that's actually interesting that you like, or it's just something that you feel like, man, what is that? Sometimes actually that's my favorite part about writing a tune or producing a track is when I don't know who the hell's song it is. I'm like, who the fuck, what is this? I dig that. And when I'm closer to that feeling, I know I'm getting near the finish line, because if I feel like, oh, it's mine, like, oh, and it's this and it's that, it's not there. It's a trippy feeling. But if I'm 10,000 feet away, then I'm like, okay, no, I think it exists in this space for, that's just how I define it. It's just like, okay, I think this is something that, as an audience member, because you're the first audience member as a writer. That's the other thing too. If you don't dig it, I know there's some people that go, well, I think people will like this hook. I'm like, who fucking cares? Like, well, what do you like? If you dig it, I mean, that's what people want to see. They want to feel that connection, that charge from what you write and what you have to say.
So you write for you. Are you writing for you, or you're writing for you? You're not writing for the audience, right?
No, there's definitely, like, before I started, with this in this direction for my solo stuff, there was an idea of like, man, I'd like to move around more on stage. I like to do more things. I like to do this, I like to do that. It's like the whole David Lee Roth put it. He's like, it's part of your ingredients of 10,000 hours. Like, and I was like, he's right though. He's so right, because he's talking about, you do it over and over and over and over again. You figure out what you like, what you don't like, and where, because everything is so mental. It's like you're kind of, even though you're performing, you're doing things that are external. Like a lot of this is so internal, these processes of like, I want to do this. I want to try wearing that. I want to do, all this stuff is like kind of these little ideas that just ping you one day. And like little light bulbs. So it's like, where are these coming from? But I find the more you do it, the more you go, no, I'm not thinking that. I want to do this. And the more you know what you want, I think that's when things get clear for you and for an audience, because there's a beauty from Deborah Harry, I think in the 80s. She was on a chat, I think it was a BBC, and they were asking her about songwriting and about popular songs. And she says, I believe that all songs already exist in, basically, if you want to say it, like the consciousness of people, like their subconscious, as well as mine as being a writer. So she says, if I unlock a tune one way or another and that hook slams, it's because it already exists in then, and I'm finding it. I think there's a real beauty to that.
That's interesting. And that's very abstract to hear coming from Debbie, but that's very, very unique. What bands wow you, man? What, like, who like, yeah. Who do you hold up? I know there's so many great musicians, but who really wows you when you listen and you're like, wow.
Okay. I mean, right off the top of my head, I still remember, and the feeling is the same. The experience is the same. I remember when I was 5 and I was hopping in my dad's car. I think I was going to hockey practice or something. He's like, okay, today's the day. I'm like, what? He puts on Zepp 1 for me.
Wow. Okay.
I went, what the fuck is this? This shit is dope. I was like, what is this? I didn't even know what it was. I was just like, shit. Like I said, we grew up with music, but that was something else. I think, you guys were talking about live performances before I jumped on. And sometimes there's these great versions of stuff that just sets my hair on fire from bands. Like you were talking about Van Halen, like Van Halen live, I think in Oakland Stadium, 1981, playing, come on.
Fair warning. Unchained.
I covered the damn thing. I can't remember the title. Exactly. Unchained. And there's something about that, their funk live and their groove. And it was like, when I covered it, I actually beat mapped the live version, because I was like, it was a little faster and there were different little changes in the tempo, but it just had this like glue, and sometimes it could be something really simple. Like that riff is kind of a poppy riff with an electric guitar on top, but it's funky. It's bad. The drums are like just pounding, simple.
Yeah.
And, it really brings you back to like original kind of rock and roll, like something it doesn't have to be very complicated, but it's got to have that, like it has to want to come out. There has to be this like kind of do or die feeling behind the music. So any band, I think, depending if they're on, like I saw Dave Matthews live when I was
amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I was a big fan anyway.
Yeah.
But, like good God. And funnily enough, also a lot of niche music live. I've always been into like the blues since I was a kid. That's probably what made me, as like I said, like early rock and roll or blues made me want to be a singer. But when I found flamenco, like hardcore gypsy music in Spain, and seeing some of those cats live, that's like
That's some different shit right there.
yeah, it's like
It's
it's like
crazy.
the gypsies blues, the blues of Andalusia, and it's you're not the same after. You're just not. It's like things like that. Just your whole body just gets worked over, and again, that's music of desperation. They're singing about things that only that they've gone through as a people or as a community, things that we can all relate to. But there's something behind it. It's like that usual adage of like, why do black singers just have that thing? Like they got to say this thing. Like if you listen to those early singers that I think everybody is emulating, if not consciously, unconsciously. Like I think Little Richard, you listen to Lucille, I think that's most modern rock singers, that put that kind of welly in the voice and that kind of energy. And, it's like when you really have to say something, I was like, that's probably been the thing that I'm always drawn to more than sometimes than songwriting. It's like the two different mindsets. And there is a real similarity in blues and flamenco, and then coming from very different parts of the world. But it kind of shows you this unity and humanity when people are they're just desperate to express themselves, and that to me that never gets old.
Right on, man. I love it. In a totally different direction. I just want to geek out for like 30 seconds. Because you were talking about on the grid, and what you said was so beautiful and so true. And I want to dig into that more. But when you talked about putting Van Halen on the beat map, or Zeppelin beat map, one or the other,
yeah.
It just made me think of you engineering, and you're a fucking wizard at it. And I'm just interested in basically we don't want to bore our audience if they're not into it by my question, not by you. But what kind of DAW are you using? And like your latest single that you put out, from what I understand, you played all the instruments, mm-hmm. You recorded yourself playing all the instruments, mm-hmm. You mixed yourself, you produced the track yourself. Yeah. So basically, it's 100% like it's all your hands on it. So I'm interested in that process a little bit, and not just the basics of what software to use. I know it's like, it's like somebody saying what kind of guitar pick to use, but I am interested. I'm interested in your process a little bit. I think it's fascinating.
Well, as you said, being able to, like you said, front to back, 0 to 100%, and do it all yourself. That's the beauty of being in our time, to do what I did, in the 80s or even the 90s, even late 90s, wouldn't be able to do it. I'd need like 5 dudes just like figuring out what the hell happened to the tape deck. And I've tracked the tape because I'm, grew up listening to vinyl. I'm one of those geeks.
Oh, wow. That's interesting right there. Tell us more. Come on, keep going.
I've done that. And I did it at a studio in North Hollywood when I was working on some tracks years ago, different direction I was in at the time. But I just loved the sound. And I wanted to see if there was something that I could get from that magic in tape. And I ended up these days, because it's more simply, I'm literally in the space where I recorded the tune. I've got a laptop and we've got like very little outboard gear. That's the thing. It's like, it's all in the box. I use plugins to make it closer to that analog thing that we talk about, being 2-inch tape and all that. But basically I'm a Pro Tools kid. Like I grew up doing that. And so I learned hotkeys and Shed and like knowing how to navigate and be comfortable with it. And I've tried a few others, but it's just can't teach an old dog. You're just going back to what you know.
Well, I remember just to your testament what you're saying. I remember you whizzing through Pro Tools back when I first met you. You were like, I think you were 15 or 16, maybe 17 tops. So you've been on Pro Tools a while, man.
Yeah, and yeah.
You were on it then, yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely gotten, I think, even tighter, but like a lot of the fundamentals, it's just like when I use it, and if I try another DAW, they all do something, they all have their pros and cons, but I find, man, it also has a kind of robustness when I need to mix. It's able to handle, I use the Carbon with it, the Avid's Carbon, so that allows me to use a lot of processing power to mix. Because what I like to do when it's kind of cool, like even as I'm writing a tune, and these days I've been using a lot of like sounds that are already in the box, especially for drums in particular, and some bass, like messing with synths more than I ever have. But as I'm working on things, I actually like to mix it. Even if I'm just working on a hook, like I want to hear the drums taking my head off. Like I don't want them thinking, like, no, come on, like I want to feel it. And because it took a long time to learn how to pull the sound out to mix and to master, which is a whole other bag of sauce. But it's like just the basics of getting it to sound the way you feel it is a big deal. It's like it's an emotional thing. It's like, God, like I want to feel the air when I hear the kick drum. At least I do. And especially in certain tracks, like you want to get what you want, right? You have to find it sonically. And so I will be, already working through like what that kick drum, where does that live? Or what kind of bass am I using? Like Angel, I used like 3 different basses. I used a sub bass, like a synth sub. I used I think it was from Thriller. It's Jupiter 8. It's like a digital version of the synth. They used that in like all those old tracks. And like Thriller is probably one of my favorite records of all time. That was one I grew up on hard too.
Thriller? Oh, great album. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And I met Greg Fillinganes on tour and I just about passed out, because he was so generous, answering all my questions and me just fanboying. But I know that they use that. It was like an old analog synthesizer. And so they digitized it now. I think, who does it? I have a version of theirs, and name escapes me. But I used like a stereo bass, and then I cut the low end out, and then I used an electric bass just to do fill-in lines, just to kind of make it have a little bit of some phrases here and there. So sometimes I feel like I'm always chasing something. If I'm writing or if I'm mixing, it's like I'm chasing this thing. I almost don't even know what it is half the time. It's just like, oh, I don't like that. No, well, I want it to be this. So to have like a dialogue with someone, it would be hard for me, I think, to have a band doing what I'm doing now, because it's very much like, okay, I want it to feel like James Brown on the Tammy Show. I want that, but I don't. I'm not going to nick any lines outright. I'm not taking. I'm not like pulling, oh, that's a bass riff. I mean, sometimes you do unconsciously, but sometimes just like, I just want to feel like that, or I want a tempo, and those are little conversations I can have with myself. I don't have to, argue with a drummer or something, which is, not safe.
Never argue with the drummers, bro. Never argue with the drummers. I want to play a little bit of the, of Angel. Just want to play a little bit of it. I hope we don't get copywritten for this. Emmett. So I'm just gonna play a little bit of it, So here's Angel by Emmett Lee Stang, everybody.
Angel, I need your devil now. I can't live so cold. I've been lonely yet. I'm not next to you, girl. It's scaring me. You feel lonely. That's smoother than all the other ones.
Okay. Amazing. I really like it. That like a fuzzy I don't know, like you layer it in there, but I could hear that.
Yeah.
The bass is like got a fuzz on it. It's great.
And that would be like a horn line in the James Brown band.
How long did it take for you to come up with the melody for this song?
This one was kind of weird because I had kind of a shitty verse with different chords, and I was like, dude, simplify this thing, like, because I knew what I wanted, and I was like, nah, I had something different. I don't even remember what it was, but it obviously wasn't that great to remember. And finally, just having that simple, it's 2 chords, just back and forth, but that which is very, like early 60s James Brown feel, just with the synth, it kind of pushes it in a different direction. And I had, it took the verse a little bit of monkeying around, I think, with this one, because I was like, it's very easy to go R&B with me. And that's something I tell some people that I'm working with in the studio, if I'm singing for them or singing, like working on a tune, I'm like, I'm kind of meat and potatoes. So I'll like start singing blues riffs before long and go a little gospel-y. So it's like, I mean, it's always like a preface with people. So without it making it, just like I'm doing like a blues thing, I had to find little spaces that were more melodic and little things, because it is so R&B, that verse. And this one, like I said, was backwards to the process I was talking about earlier, where it's so nice to have a hook. And funnily enough, here, even though it starts Angel with the hook, I didn't do that. I didn't put the hook in the beginning with those hits till the very end, right before I released this damn thing, because I was like, I had an intro that was a lot more. It was just kind of like, it was like sounded like an old Motown R&B thing, and it was kind of quiet, and then it turns in the verse. I was like, that's not doing anything for me. And I was like, what if and I kept remembering stories of, and especially like you listen to like early Motown tunes, early Beatles tracks, she loves you, yeah, and they just hit you with the hook right away. I was like, wait a minute, this is not the era of radio as much anymore, where you need 20 seconds for a cat to talk over it.
Right.
And I was like, what if I just go, Angel, just but with hits? Like it feels like a Motown tune.
Yeah, I thought that was unusual, you know, that you, I had to go back and do it twice. I'm like, did I start at the beginning of the song? Because I'm so used to a song having an intro.
Yeah.
And I thought that's pretty cool that you did it this way, where it just kind of, boom, just jumps off.
I was thinking a little bit, sometimes the area in which you live does kind of steer you in one direction. In this case, because I thought, man, streaming days, like that track drops, I'm hearing the hook right away. And that's something I've always wanted to do, but not just for the sake of doing it, if it works. Because I've done a lot of riff rock in my time where it's or whatever you got, and then you're waiting and you're like, okay, grass is growing, and then you get the verse. And that worked. Like when I was a kid, if like Stone Temple Pilots were on, like that 20 seconds of that riff was perfect for the DJ to cover. But I thought, I don't think I need to worry about that. And even if I do, I'm not. I thought, I should just do what really jumps out. And I thought, no, I think it's kind of like a preface, preface to the tune. And yet it's the hook, but it's not the hook that you end up hearing. So, but I like, as you suggested, if it is a little like, fuck's that. Like, I like that. I'm always going for that on some level. That's
great, dude. We can't hear you, Cookie. You're muted.
Sorry, my dogs are barking. I didn't need to hear them, but no, I'm with Hef on that, and I like it. It's that, and what you were saying about hitting them in the beginning. The song is not a short song, but it seems short, which is cool. And I think a lot of that has to do with the arrangement. Like you said, you explored some different ideas with your arrangement of it, and it hits you hard and fast, and then it's over. And I love that, man. It just gives you that, hey, it's done. Play it again. Not, is this thing done yet? You know what I mean?
Well, so you made me think of something. There was another thought about why I wanted like a flag at the beginning of the tune. This kind of came right out of, I had been going and I'd been thinking about my club experiences, not just as a musician, but like when I just go to dance and just go hang out at a club. And I thought, what if there's a signal that if you know the tune, hopefully, oh, this track is about to pop. I thought, well, if you're other than like a DJ doing a transition, literally it's like, oh, I know the song's coming. I thought, no, that's something, that's what I would want to hear. It's kind of saying, all right, this is happening now. It's kind of putting something in the ground.
Right on, for sure.
This single, I want to talk to you about, Emmett. I really want to talk to you about, well, I want to get into touring, but I really want to know, like, when you put this song out in today's day and age, are you using a publicist? What is your process to get the song heard? Because there's a million musicians. You're a great musician. And it sometimes is those, the old saying that there's a million musicians, great musicians out there that'll never get heard, right?
Yeah.
How do you get heard? How do you get yourself out there? Especially a song like this is really strong, and it's got a huge pop feel for me. Like I could feel like that song could be very popular. And we've had Noel Skaggs from Fits and the Tantrums. It kind of gives me that kind of like happy vibe, of music. But I know that it's been, it's not easy to get up and out. So what's your approach to getting up and out so people can actually hear your song?
Great question. These days, because although labels do exist, artists have to think and become the labels themselves, which is a lot of work,
Yeah.
But it's fun from another perspective because you really you're not having, obviously you get to keep 100%. It depends on what that 100% is, but you also have 100% of what you want to do. Love it or hate it. It's like, okay, no, this is what I want to say. I'm not dealing with a PR group, or I'm not getting a call from a guy going, I think the hi-hat's a little loud. That's not happening, not yet. So it's like, to answer that, it's basically, what does a label do? They invest tons of money, right? I mean, it's like a lot of bands that I talk to on the road that have been at it and have stayed consistent. They're like, bro, it's all PR at a certain point. You have to have you got to have a bank churning coals going that fire. It's got to be happening a lot.
That's right.
It's almost as if, I hate to say it, but there's an element of people have to be told a little bit. I think in general, I know one of the boys from Oasis was talking about this. He's like, man, they didn't want Hendrix. No one, Hendrix was playing for 14 people in Greenwich Village before the manager from the Monkees picked him up and flew him over to London. And it's like, people had to be told Hendrix is a thing. And even if I'm not Hendrix, obviously, but it's like the idea being, if kind of no one really knows what's, if like sometimes even label people, I think more and more, I'm not sure, which makes sense why they're investing more in older artists now. They're kind of been buying up catalogs. That's an important thing for young artists to realize, like how much of that money that could be for a new talent. Billions are going back in Bruce Springsteen, Sting, and Genesis, and you name it, and Journey. So if you just look at it, the money trail usually answers a lot of questions. So for someone like me, it's, the reach of social media, even after you've gone a little bit viral, algorithms have changed. They've changed on me. Things that were so easy now are like, oh my God, it's like just, very difficult. But I think also before you start promoting, like you have to put money into your own thing. Like you have to invest like a label would to really answer your question. And so part of it is seeing it clinically from that perspective, like, okay, how you do that is also up to you. So if you're the label. So what we just watched there was more of I don't call it like an official music video. It's like a performance, literally me dancing in this room and playing the shit. And I was like, I just want something before dropping dough into like some idea of like a music video that would be an official thing. I was like, I just want to get this thing on the map and show people what I do. Funnily enough, sometimes they're not sure who's playing what. Some people get it, but a lot of people, they don't know. They go, oh, the guys, you sound great. And I'm like,
that's me. I noticed that right away. I'm like, oh, he's playing guitar, he's playing drums. Oh shit, he's singing. This is great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, God bless. But it's like normally, I think obviously it depends if you have an eye for it, if you're digging in, but like sometimes people that really dig you could be more focusing on just when there's a mic, or there's like, you're moving, your mouth is going and you're lip syncing, and they're keying into that. And it's like, oh, okay. And so part of the journey of doing solo stuff was figuring out, what do I think matters to me, obviously first, and what's going to, with some idea of like what would land on an audience. But essentially I thought, man, I get a lot of people would be happy with me just kind of singing ballads. That's kind of why social media worked out for me for a little while, was, I would do stripped down versions of stuff, kind of in the style of Cornell. He really inspired me to do that with music, because I've heard so many stripped down versions that he did of like Billie Jean, where it's just him and a guitar and it's just nasty. I thought, woo, like that's a way to kind of stick out. That was a few years ago where I was starting to get an idea of how to do something different. But since now I'm kind of shaking it and doing different things, I thought, well, if people can't get a sense of what the character is that Emmett is as he's performing it, it's kind of, there's not a lot I can do. So I thought that has to be really strong. And I was just on a podcast the other week, and this dude was like, man, I dig how sparse the production is because I can hear your voice. And I think that's really important for, launching as a solo artist, that there's no mistaking, oh, this is you. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I didn't think about that, but I'm definitely very clear about like what am I wearing? How, obviously being comfortable, since I'm dancing so much these days, and really thinking of the brand. You know, like what do you get? Like if you, besides the songs, and if you think the songs are cool, eventually that'll release like more of like an album's worth. Why am I going to see this dude? You know, and I've been thinking about like, okay, why would you? Why do I want to perform? And so it's like, just to sing and play songs is not enough for me. And so the whole live aspect of being able to move, to do the splits, doing all this James Brown shit, like really just, you know, going for it and burning calories on stage and making it an atmosphere. Not necessarily, not even with choreography, just being able to rip like a musician would, but as a dancer. That's why Brown is one of my favorite entertainers of all time, because you didn't know what direction that dude was going in. And that's exciting as hell to me. And in a way, I kind of want to bring some of that back. And I want to be able to capture that in the media that I promote, not just in the live shows. But a lot of it is thinking about what, if one song is like a piece of culture, and this is something that's really important, without just releasing a bunch of tunes, say Angel, we have this debut single. This is something that I'm going to be kind of working a lot from different perspectives, putting money into as well. I have a performance video that says one thing. Okay, well then you have, you know, I've got T-shirts that are designed in the way the single is done. You know, I want a lot of things that surround something very, very clear, which is the song, the brand, the image of what the thing is, and then doing a music video of it, doing then a live version of it, and really just kind of showing people over and over and over, like what is this thing called Emmett Lee Stang? What is this show? And you know, that could take like a year just to do one song. And so I've been in bands where we go, oh, it's been a couple of months, we got to release something, because, you know, and I've learned from that. I'm like, no, like, especially if you think a song is worthy, that you have to do a radio campaign, back to being your own label.
Right.
Labels, you know, now it's like what, 40 grand to get a number one hit, essentially. That's the word around, you know, the chit chat around the campfire. It's like, okay, well, maybe if I don't have like that to blow, but in my own way, if I get, you know, some action on this thing, you have to be able to push some air behind a tune. It comes down to it being a financial issue.
Yeah, and then going back to the PR, because PR has always been the most important thing in my opinion. It's because of the relationships that the whoever your PR rep has with the media outlets. So the stronger the relationship is with Rolling Stone and MTV and whoever else, you know, you're getting seen on, it really boils down to their relationship with those other media outlets. And that's really, I think, you know, what you pay for when you're hiring a PR to, you know, rep you for, you know, I guess I would say the minimum would be 3 months to work a single, to work a record properly. And then, you know, obviously there's nothing wrong with having more PR if you're successful with those first 3 months, to continue on with the PR, so you keep that train rolling. Because I feel like that's really, you know, as a musician, and Cookie, you and I have spoken about this a numerous amount of times, where the musician just wants to be the musician, man. You don't want to have to be the PR. You don't want to have to act as the record label. It's taking away all of the focus from you actually doing the music and being creative, where, you know, there's other pieces of the puzzle. Yes, of course you need money, right, Emmett and Cookie? You need money to hire someone to do PR for you. You know, how does one do it when, you know, when you don't? And then how important, let the audience know how important it is to support the artist that you like when they go on the road, because this is really, going on the road is another form of PR. You know,
before Emmett answers that, I want to interject on what you were saying there, because I think Emmett earlier mentioned how, you know, the artists these days through social media and stuff, they got to kind of be the label, the PR and everything. Yeah. And I just wanted to lead into your question to Emmett, because Emmett, even though he hasn't lived near me and I've interacted with him on a personal level in many years, I've seen him on the timeline using social media for what it really can be used for, like relentlessly, like being his own PR agent, but also to testament to what he said, by having fun, being creative with it, like recording these covers, and also, you know, like performing and using that as a tool. And if I'm not mistaken, this is where I'm leading into something. If I'm not mistaken, Emmett, isn't this what kind of introduced you into a relationship with Steve Stevens from Billy Idol, your actual social media activity?
Yeah, there is a silver lining to all that, as you said, like grinding over the social media platforms. I didn't have a belief in them when I started them. I had to get kicked into it because I was a musician. I was like, oh man, that's one, whatever. And people are like, no, you like, where are you gonna? You got to start somewhere. And so finally, like, just getting, I talked about trying an angle on social media like a couple years ago. That's what eventually got me into The Effect, because I did a tune that blew up on Instagram and I think on a few other platforms, TikTok and YouTube or something, but it really went bananas on Instagram. And that happened to be Trev Lukather's wedding song, which had just happened. And so that hit his feed. That's a random, kind of scenario. But this idea, what I think, if I had to talk to like a young musician or artist who feels like I did about social media, I would say, no, do it. And I have had these conversations, people that are kind of resistant to it. I go, no, do it, because you will actually figure out, again, back to the 10,000 hours thing, of like what you want to do. And I met a lot of multi-talented people, a lot more people these days can play a bunch of instruments and do different things. And it's harder for those people, I think, to a certain degree. When I look at myself, I think I'm really just that little ham I was when I was 5. Like, I'm going right back to that. It's just kind of full circle. But I would say social media has helped me figure that out, because when I'd get, a few dudes going, oh, I love that you played all the instruments. And I'm like, okay, cool. But, or sometimes people don't know. I'm like, well, do I want them to know? Like, do you start having these questions with yourself? Like, well, why am I playing all the instruments and then taping it? Do I want people to, is that the thing that I want, that I care about? And then you think, well, then it became an inner dialogue of like, no, I want to sing. I want people to know, okay, I'm singing, and that matters. So then maybe you shoot less stuff, or you do a different kind of cover. Like I said, something stripped down. Lucky for me, when I was really trying to answer these questions, or having this inner dialogue with myself, Steve Stevens popped out of nowhere on TikTok and just started messaging me. And I was like, yeah, right. Nah, no way. I'm like, yeah, good one. And I had just moved to Vegas. Our buddy Kev, who is the best bass player on planet Earth, by the way, Kev Vecchione, my man. And he actually was getting me work in his, probably one of the better cover bands in Vegas. I was just about to kind of get started with them. And I was a month in Vegas, and then I was getting these messages from this Steve Stevens. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Like, literally having to learn his stuff, like at the same time. And sometimes I'll watch the music videos just as a reference and stuff. And I'm watching, I'm like, something's up here. And but he was nice enough to add me everywhere, just to be like, no, it's me. And Kev was like the one who's like, no, that's him, man. You're good. And I was like, okay. So many blessings from Kevin. He's always been like a guardian angel, but he convinced me. And the cool thing, eventually hooking up with Steve Stevens and talking with him, is he because he's a musician's musician, right? He's and a songwriter. Like, he's kind of the whole package. Like, he's the real deal in as much as he knows what he's seeing. So he's a very educated viewer, and he loved the fact that I would, do, like what I was trying to do. Like, what if Cream played, Susie Q, or the version like Creedence Clearwater did, but like, what if Cream did that version and solo and shit, but he dug all that stuff, and he dug all the Zeppelin covers, and me trying to handle some Cornell. And
that's very cool.
That's because he doesn't, he's done it and he's still doing it, but he basically, he doesn't have a lot of time on his hands. Like, those dudes are always touring. They're always working. They just released another tune. They got their at least a 9-track album coming out, I think, later in the year. So they're always hustling. Like, they're in their 20s. And so once I learned about him, like, it was a big deal, obviously, for him to want to connect, but then to even take the time to have coffee and talk about what he thought my skill set was, and why it was interesting to him. Turns out, like, we grew up on the same music, even though we're from different eras, essentially. Yeah. You get him going about anything. I would talk about, like, oh, dude, this one Hendrix performance. He was like, bro, I've got the mic that they would use in the studio.
That's so incredible.
he'd like stop everything. Like we'd be in the studio and he's like, oh, like, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, a whole thing about, you know, how they would mic Hendrix's cabs. And it's like, Steve is still 17 and going, God,
That's
I love
awesome.
these guys.
I love that.
Wow, that's so amazing.
Yeah. And you hear that, like, we'll get into that, but just hearing him live night after night, it's like you hear that love of music. He's able to pull in shit. Sometimes I think did some things just for me. Like I caught them before we toured with them. He invited me out to a few Billy Idol shows at the Cosmopolitan here in Vegas. And he starts doing, like, in the middle of one of his big guitar solos, he goes, and I'm like, they don't know, you know, from Hendrix, a Band of Gypsies. And I'm sure a lot of people in the crowd knew it as well. But for me, you know, I'm like drooling, jaws on the floor. And he starts riffing and stuff. And it's like he can really pull from so many different musical languages and put it all together.
That's
So,
fucking cool, man. Yeah, dude. That's yeah, dude. That's amazing. What's that like, you know, being on tour with, I mean, Billy Idol, you know, and those guys, and you know, you were, I correct me if I'm wrong, Toto as well. You've worked with Steve Perry. We were talking about vocalists. I mean, he's another Steve Perry. Like you're like, how do you hear that? But like, he's just so amazing. That voice was just so amazing. Terrible story, the Journey story where they just couldn't get along for whatever the reason was. And they ended up breaking up. But when they were together, they were amazing. They were just an amazing group. I mean, they had a fucking video game, if you remember. Do you remember the Journey video game? It was fuck. I used to go in there and play it all the time, and it was like Steve Smith. You'd have to. There would be floating drums, like snare drums, and you'd have to get them to the top. And Neil Sean. I don't know. Anyway, just really fucking amazing. You know, vocalist Steve Perry, but. Take us on a journey. Tell us some you know, tour stories and, you know, just being on the road with these guys and then the knowledge that you get, especially from someone like Stevens, the guitar player for Billy Idol, which maybe people don't know, but like, man, that's just incredible. Like, take us on a little bit of that, no pun intended, journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one. I was going to say, man, you know, you've made it when you've got a video game based on your brand. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
You're in the house. Steve Stevens, that was kind of a cool, something kind of auspicious when you're taking a plunge in your career. I've been chasing the film industry for long enough, I would say. And I had been in LA for almost a decade. I went to Vancouver because I heard if you're a dual citizen, it was easier sometimes to kind of get work, and it actually worked out pretty well for me. But you know, you talk about were you just singing with people? I'm looping back into something you said earlier. It was actually right around that time I was working at a liquor store, and I would sing for people all the time because I was getting back into that. Okay, I'm getting the music bug. I got to get back into this, and I'd be, you know, we'd get tips at this liquor store. So sometimes I'd be like, hey, what do you want to hear? Is there a style? I'll sing some shit for you.
That's awesome.
On a Friday night, people were a little loose walking in. I knew it was, you know, happening. But like this, you know, I knew I was getting called back to this. And COVID, when that happened, I started working on socials. I was like, okay, by the social media, I got to get back into music. And that brought me to Vegas. And so really, again, meeting Steve Stevens and just getting a message from him. When you're just, you know, starting and you're kind of getting back into the swing of things, and you're like, this is kind of a cool way to do it. To also, what you find is you're also meeting a kindred spirit. You're meeting an icon that you've heard since you're little, which is hard for your brain to process, number one. But then you're like, man, we dig the same things about music. So sometimes you forget, you know, hopefully I don't come off too fanboy when I'm hanging with these guys, you know, maybe they can tell you, but it's like they, you know, sometimes I'm like, okay, like, what was, you know, Dirty Dan, can you get into that a little bit? You know, I'll save my bullets, you know, for the right. I don't come out just going that I'm not at 10 right away. You know, I try to pretend I'm cool for like at least half an hour. But like, you know, it's a kind of a cool thing because you realize when you meet people that are at that level of success, but also they're successful in as much as how great of people they are. I find in all the Steves, literally the guys that were behind a lot of what we were able to do with the effect, they're all Steves. Steve Stevens, Steve Lukather, Steve Perry. And these are all people that are exceptionally talented and have earned their way in the biz for a long time, but they are real people persons, and they always talk about other people, which I find that's a really cool thread. It's a commonality I find in really successful people that you like, that you can hang out with. They don't really, you got to kind of work hard. Like I said, I would try not to fanboy, but they don't talk about they don't talk about work, even though they know they're looking at a fan. You know, they're trying to see you as a peer. And that's also kind of once you realize that that's what they're doing, that's a healthy mindset, even though it's kind of weird for you to say that, but it's when you're thinking about, man, I worship these people. But really, they would prefer if you're like, no, you're coming here to play, and so am I. And that's it. Like they don't create, at least these people, the people I've met, do not create a kind of barrier, like a certain.
That's awesome. That's great.
Of distance between us just because they've done a lot and I'm
sure
started or whatever. They don't do that. And you know, there's some doozies I heard from Steve Stevens, like stories like he's a cool cat because he's a rock and roll, like he's a real rock star, but he's really chill. He's very self-effacing. And so when he pulls out some zinger stories, he's usually talking about Billy. Like he's got some beautiful ones, you know, back in the day.
I can imagine, bro.
You can only imagine, right?
There's some great ones. And it's like even like him just saying, you know, because I asked him, I was like, you know, well, actually, one of the first things I asked him when we went to coffee the first time, I was like, you and Billy have worked for how long do you, like 40 years, right? Plus or whatever it's been. And how is it that you're able to still do it? And he again talks about Billy, and he said, you know, that guy has no ego in the studio. Even if he brings something to the table that he's been working on that he wants to develop, if someone does something else and it's different than what he planned, he goes, you know, I love that. It's fucking great. You know, and he just is like, he just supports it immediately. He doesn't go like, well, that's not what I wanted to do. He didn't do that. So he said, man, that guy will roll. Like if there's something cool, he knows it and he rolls with it. He doesn't care where it comes from. I was like, wow, that's good to know. Cause he said, man, I've been in other super groups that just fell apart because it's like, fuck you, you know what I've done. And it's like, oh no, it's this and it's that. And it just goes to shit.
Yeah. It just goes to shit.
Yeah. And he said that guy he just wants to get the best. And he's able to step out of his own way if need be. I was like, that's pretty cool. And like being with them on tour, they're like a factory, a family and a factory. Like everything is so pro. Their whole band, everybody's a sweetheart. Like everybody on that crew, from Jimbo, man, I don't know if Jimbo's listening to this right now, but the tour Jimbo, you guys would love Jimbo. He is the best tour manager on planet Earth. He's like that kick-ass uncle that you didn't know you had, and he can kick someone's ass, but he's like a teddy bear.
Oh yeah,
cool. He's the perfect TM guy, and he had tons of stories. But like he was there, seeing us and the effect, and you know, like certain things we didn't really have put together in terms of like technical audio gear and shit. And he was like, we didn't have certain snakes, and he's like, you need an 8-channel snake, kid. And I was like, yeah. I was like, yo, you're right, we don't have one. And then he would just roll his eyes and go grab one and be like, okay, this is yours for the remainder of this tour.
That's cool.
You know, and so he would tell you if you're fucking up, but if you were like, no, you're right, he was like, all right, you're all right, kid. He was such a mensch. But like that whole crew, all the managers and everybody, they were like a big happy family. And Idol is super pro. He gives it like it's crazy. People really feel it. He's kind of like an Elvis to me. Like he has that. He in as much as like he has this clear, identifiable visual image as well as a sonic one, where you go, yeah. And it's not a band, it's him, although Steve Stevens is a large part of the music. It's like this, he's like this icon. He's like one of the last living, like, bold icons. You're like, I know exactly who that is.
And he's still jamming, dude. You know what I mean?
Yo, I just want to clock in on that. I fired up, it was like on Netflix. There was like a Billy Idol concert. I forget when, but it was on Netflix. I flicked it on. This is like Billy Idol at 52 years old. This motherfucker was shredded like Bruce Lee. I'm like, what? I had no idea, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, it's so true. And he vocally, it's amazing what, you know, because I was able to watch them 2 nights in a row at the Cosmopolitan, like I said, and then to tour with them. Like the guy, boy, has he, I never talked to him about it, but a lot of his music is like pretty rough and ready. And as a vocalist, at least for me, I'm thinking about like, okay, when, in the course of the night, like where do I, knowing I got to do this tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, tour schedules can be pretty intense. I was surprised how well he was able to manage his voice, because his stuff is not, I don't think it's like easy on a vocalist, just, physically.
He's yelling a lot, right?
Yeah, but it's like, exactly. But
Rebel yell.
Rebel yell. There it is. And it's like, he's really, there's a big craft in like what I was just describing, even though he just comes off as this icon, this daredevil on stage, and he's just going to do whatever it takes to get a crowd fired up. But there's a lot of craft that I'm unaware of, because I was watching him do it every night, and I'm like, well, it's either just some serious calluses in there, or it's just like, he just knows exactly. He's a really great example of working the band on stage. Again, even though he's Elvis to me, like on stage, and everyone's just like glue, like in the crowd, like when you go out and you just hang out with people and just see like what's happening. He knows, but he's able to work the stage and everybody on it in a way that's organic. And there's a lot of performers that I've worked with, some that have that instinct of, okay, this is like me working it, but then there's some that will go like, oh, I'm supposed to like go over here and like present or gesture to the drummers doing something right now. But like Billy had this way of, it was just kind of, you didn't see it coming. He's done it so long, and I guess he just has a knack for it, where there's this very gelled feeling, there's a cohesion in his shows, and night after night, they're not always the same either. He has more prefaces before songs. He had this great story about, I don't know how it related to the tune, but he was like, he always wanted to know what it was like singing on acid, because he heard Morrison did that at the Hollywood Bowl. And he tells this story of like, he tried it, at one gig, and apparently it didn't hit him till after the show, because he said him concentrating on the show suppressed the psychedelic effects. And he's like, well, then after, just hit me like fucking, bag of bricks, mate, and he's it's like, God damn. But like, he's done it all, but it's amazing to see someone that has that reputation of just being like a real punk rocker, rock star. He's super professional, super sweet to us as the baby band, and he's a sweet to everyone that works with him. And then on stage, like, he's a well-oiled machine, man. He's something else.
Yeah. Tell us about the effect. Oh, sorry, Cookie.
No, I just want to say, we're talking about how these guys carry themselves and how he maintains himself. I know you did quite a bit of traveling with the Effect Band, which Hef was leading into anyway. I'm just curious did you find yourself needing to come up with ways? I know you take care of yourself anyway, regardless, but on the road, was it a bit of a struggle to kind of maintain, or did you find a system to keep yourself all together, or?
It's like almost like what you don't do. It's like, that's what you got to worry about, not so much what it's funny. It's like, I remember like working with Toto, and we had the privilege of being on the bus with the Toto boys. And Shannon Forrest, the drummer, he makes these doozy drinks, man. Like, cause he's from, I think, Tennessee. I think he's from Nashville. Beast drummer. If you guys don't know this guy, he's like, I could talk quite a bit about him, but for the sake of the story, he had like these really sugary drinks, which as a vocalist, to your question, like I try to avoid. Like, I don't mind like a shot or two or something, and it's hard not to when you're feeling it and you're on the road. You're like, man, this is awesome. You're just coming off a show and you're like, give me that, and it's like, it's kind of part of the thing. A lot of the established acts, they're all pretty much sober. So they don't necessarily encourage it. They don't discourage you, but things are available. And I wouldn't mind just like a little, like something straight after a show, just something to kind of bring me down a little bit. But Shannon would make these like sweet drinks. And in terms of alcohol, I'm familiar with like straight stuff and being able to like kind of watch how it's hitting my blood. But with shit, like all of a sudden, like you're upside down. But then the day after, I remember, because we had to do a show like right the day after, he's like, hey boys, I got you something. And I didn't want to say no. It'd be like a stooge, like, oh no, I'm just going to drink this. I'm like, Shannon fucking Forrest just made me a drink. I'm drinking this thing.
Yeah.
Probably one or two or more. And then, but the next day, I woke up like after the getting off the bus, I was like, damn, I actually feel this shit. And I was looking, Shannon's looking at me laughing, like, what's the matter? I'm like, nothing. You know, and then warming up before that show was like, and we only had like half-hour sets, you know, but like we weren't doing a 2-hour show like Joe Williams, that beast, you know, he does a lot of heavy lifting for that band, vocally live. And even so, it's like there's something in you as a performer when you really enjoy doing it, you enjoy hitting what you're doing and getting the crowd to an apex. You have to be there physically. You have to feel healthy, or you have to be convinced that you are. And so, but man, I some of his brews, man, would fuck me up. I'd be like, I think I'm gonna just stick to the straight shit tomorrow night, Shannon. Goddamn. Because I remember like warming up extra just to be like, wow, there's some sauce in there that normally isn't, and that's terrifying. Because especially knowing you're touring with Toto here, you know, and it's like sometimes Joe would like go into the crowd like before like sound check, and he just like watch and listen. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to like get out of here, you know. He doesn't see himself that way, even though he's this monster singer. But it's like when your peers or the people you look up to are around, you really want to give it, and you never want to slack for a second. So there's that little added energy behind it for sure.
I just want to chime in on that. You know, you're talking about Toto, like fucking Steve Lukather. Like, first off, like what you're saying about these guys, they're cool and they don't talk about themselves, they talk about others. Yeah. Like anytime I've seen an interview with this dude, he just seems like such a cool dude, like a regular dude. But this motherfucker has played like the rhythm guitar and beat. I mean, I'm just naming one song out of 10 million songs. He played on, in my era of that music that was happening that I love so much, he's on every fucking song. It's like every song, either rhythm guitar or solo guitar, and the tunes and the Toto tunes too. Like he sang a lot of the great Toto songs. I mean, I'm sorry because right now I'm fanboying off of you touring with. That's like a worse than a fanboy.
I understand, man, because I'm in the same boat. And you know, when you really realize, and when I would talk with Trev a lot at the beginning when I was doing covers, I'm like, I kind of want to do this tube song. Under the line. What's that tune called?
She's a Beauty.
She's a Beauty. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, my dad worked on that one with David Foster. And then
wow.
What? I was like, fuck, that dude was on everything. And it's just like it really, once you realize how much him and that crew, really Toto, I mean, they were on Thriller. I'm like, stop, hold traffic. That's, but Luke is that guy, even though, like you say, he's so down to earth that, I asked him once, one of the only like talking shop things, I was like, how did you find Bobby Kimball? Who, by the way, sings all those lines in the hook of that tube song. That's Bobby Kimball singing.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah. Because I'm like, that dude's hitting D's up there. I was like, who's singing that? And well, that angelic tenor, man. There's like little things, like when I got to know Luke a little bit more, I'm like, okay, can you tell me a little bit about this, a little bit about that? Because he's one of the boys, he doesn't try. What I love about him is that he's a big personality. Like he's entertaining, but he's being himself. There's nothing forced about that guy. Like he has one of these personalities where we're in a little restaurant in Germany, our first day there, and just linking up with the Toto gang. And he just starts like making friends with the waiters and the waitresses and people hanging out. Babies look at him and stare and shit, and he's like, oh, sorry, man, I just really love kids. And, he's just like, he's a charming son of a bitch. And it just comes off him all day long. And whether it's just him telling stories in the tour bus after the gig, or we're just out and about, and because he doesn't dye his hair anymore, people fucking recognize him. It's like a target. Like he can't hide anymore. And he's really sweet with the fans, when they want pictures. He's like, he'll make a joke like he's not going to. He's like, no, I'm fucking with you, let's do it. And he's like, he's always, he's someone that comes across as somebody who he hasn't forgotten where he's come from, as all these dudes come off
He's rooted. He's rooted.
Yeah, very much so. And
Good.
all the Steves, Perry as well. Like they're all big personalities, and there's no wonder that they made it beyond their musical talent, just in terms of like how they interact. So you can just see it. And I was able to meet David Page, and I mean, I was just like, having goosebumps. Like, God, the songs he's written, and that dude he's like a fly in the wall. He has no. Again, he's just telling stories. He's like, "Oh, you're going to tour with Billy Idol? I've got a great Billy Idol story for you." And you're just like, "Fucking wait! You wrote Africa, and hold on, and more than that." And it's like, it's a high to be around those people, because, like I said, it makes sense that their lives went in the way that they did, or that the success came, or that the music that came out of them happened in the way that it did, because you're like, no, because they're unapologetic, but they're just naturally creative people, and that's what they love. That's what they care about. Like it's like, that's the great leveler with all these great folks. It's like they just love doing it. I remember after one night where I could tell Luke was pulling out all the stops on Rosanna, and he doesn't play the shit the same way twice ever, right? That's the kind of guy he is. He may play a few little signature things, but then he's off. And one night it was just like, God damn it. Like, he's just burning up there. Like, he had something to say. And in the tour bus, I was like, Luke, I got to tell you, man, I don't know what the hell was going on with Rosanna, but that shit was on fire. I just had to say something. He's like, come on, man, you already got the gig. I was like, he's like, you didn't have to say. He's like, you didn't have to say anything. I was like, yes, I did. Yeah, yes, I did. And that's
giving them props, man.
Yeah. And then he was like, no, I appreciate you, man. I was like, no, fair enough. But it's like, even that, I could tell it's like, yeah, he played it, and he's on to the next thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
What did you learn from that tour in the sense of how you say they were super pro? Like, what's one good real takeaway from that tour that will stick with you forever, that you can share with the audience?
Oh, man. I think there's so many things. I think it's like back to this idea of the group, the band, everybody involved, all the help, the managers, the TMs, everybody. It is a huge family. And I really feel for someone to be successful, sooner or later, you have to find people that you resonate with, that aren't on stage with you, that are pulling the strings, that are making things convenient. Like sometimes you'd hear like the TM of Toto. He's a guy that's worked on the Grammys and the Oscars doing lighting. He's a legend just in like the whole DP and producing world. And yet he's TMing Toto. But to hear how on it these people are, if like anything is going wrong on stage, or if like, oh, Joe was losing his voice on one night, there was something going around. And so he's getting a radio call, and he's like, Emmett, do you have any tips for vocalists if they're having an issue? And I was like, oh shit. But like, they're so on it, and everyone is so dedicated to making the whole, it's like a platoon, making that whole brigade like work like a, and that there's no, it can't be, the reason can't be financial, because when I work with people that's what they care about, they don't have half the heart. So I'm like, wow, you have to surround yourself with people that really feel and think like you do, even though they don't have your vocation specifically, but they have to really care like about coordinating things. And that's what I learned from all great people, regardless of what industry it is. It's that they know how to talk to people. They can be relatable. I met through my dad. My dad made partner in a very successful consulting firm. That's why we moved to the States originally. But one of the guys that took him under his wing was a legend in the firm from a different time period. He was a bit older, but he was like James Bond. And I eventually met him. And I was picturing someone totally different because I heard a million stories. And then when I met the dude, I was like, you are the most relatable guy on planet Earth. And I heard later stories from my dad, this guy, that he could talk to anybody. He could be at a strip club, he could talk to a janitor, he could talk to an executive. He was in his element. It didn't
A
matter.
real people person, huh?
Real people person. I feel like if you, if I had to boil it all down, it's you have to care about people and you have to care about every single person like they're one of your own.
That's awesome, dude. All right, so before I want to get into some of this acting that you've done, which is pretty cool too, kind of somewhat goes hand in hand with the music sometimes. We have a couple questions from the audience. So Emily, I just put it up on the screen. She wants to know: is there more new music coming soon, Emmett?
Yeah, new music is already being produced. I actually have stuff in the can already, stuff I'm really excited about in the same direction that Angel is in. That's kind of like I call dance, pop, soul, funk thing that Emmett Lee Stang is into. That's I really feel like I found the thing that I really want to do, that the music that the stuff that I want to say. I feel like I found it. You're never done. You never feel like you're satisfied, perhaps, but you feel like, okay, I got my foot in the door. So I have music. I'd say I have like almost a little bit more than half a record's worth already. And I won't be releasing things soon, but I may work out. I do have like some subscription-based services from the people that are like really hardcore on Instagram. If people are on there, I may give them earlier tidbits than the general public is privy to.
Right on. Thank you, Emily, for your question. And then one last one here from Minton, my dog Minton, who's a longtime listener of the show, great supporter, one of the homies as well. What's the latest piece of techie kit you've bought or used for the first time?
Okay, yeah, here's a real technical thing. This is pretty critical, and it's something I figured out right before I released Angel, and this has to do with mastering. So hopefully this relates. I never felt that I knew how to master in a way that I really dug. It's always been an issue as long as I've been around. Usually someone else had to master something. And like the dude that I am, like clicking shit in Pro Tools, I have this limiter. It's an Abbey Road TG mastering limiter. It's a kind of a cool story. It's based on what they basically used for the Beatles at EMI Studios. And this was like these random pieces of gear they used to make that you can't really replicate. It's like 1 in a million, and they probably made like 1 or 2 of them. But they were able to digitize this thing. And it's really just like a limiter for mastering. And I was clicking around trying to figure out how I could make the master sound better. Like I had no technical terms that I can throw out here. I was just like, it doesn't sound like it's coming out of the speakers. But I'm in the limiter and I click it to this thing that says MS. And I was like, that sounds kind of cool. And I start just fucking around with some knobs and I was like, well, that sounds really cool. And it turns out I found out what I was doing. It was a very technical thing in mastering. But this is right into this question. It's a totally brand new thing. You can see like it's a piece of gear that I've used, but I feel like I'm using it in a totally new way because I learned how to compress or limit the sides of a track separate from the center channel. And this is some pretty techie shit. And I read an article about this, it made me sleep better at night, but I was like, okay, what is happening? So I really learned for dance music or music that doesn't have a lot of like guitars, let's say like heavy guitars, more dreamy music or the stuff that I do. What happens when you pull up, you make louder the sides, whatever's going in left and right, individually, separately from the middle channel. You start feeling like you have this 3-dimensional kind of wall of sound coming at you. And as soon as I started realizing, okay, what the hell is that? Oh, it's this. Oh, and it sounds like that. Oh my God. It was like night and day. It was like, I do it every single time now on mastering. And it turns out it's a common technique if you're a mastering dude. I'm not. I'm just kind of winging it. And it was day and night. And thank God I figured that out before I released the track.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer those questions.
Yeah, you bet.
It's been, first of all, great having you here. Great hearing the stories. To me, this is my first time hearing you. Like as we, had booked you to come up to hang out with us. I have not heard of you beforehand. Like I said, there's so many great musicians that sometimes just never get heard. I'm happy that Cookie, knows you, and that we're able to have, be privileged to have you up on stage with us and hanging out, and that I got a chance to hear your music. And so definitely subscribed to your channel, to your YouTube channel, and I'll be looking for new music from you, as the future comes along. I want to get into a little bit of the acting aspect. How did you fall into acting? I know it's been a while. I looked at your IMDb, but it's been a while since you've, really been doing, I guess, any active acting. But take us on that little bit of a journey, because that's interesting, a whole other angle of entertainment. So what was that like for you, and what pushed you to get into doing that?
That's a cool one. My earlier memories of performing had to do with music, or like I said, being in school, either doing some kind of little play or what have you. And I was always causing shit as a youngster at school. And one of the things that kind of got me into acting, I would say, is mimicry. I was one of those dudes. I was pretty terrible at school. I could do impressions of my teachers, and sometimes I did them during class. Yeah, I was one of those, because I had
That's awesome.
I was kind of bored, as you can read between the lines. But I had this I had this one teacher who he sounded a lot like Walken, and he would talk, and he was a math teacher. And I was like, damn, I was in 7th grade, but I knew enough about Walken to kind of go for like an impression. And one day I was just like answering a question, and I just gave him the voice back. He didn't even know. But the kids were like, fucking hiding.
That's great.
So I always knew that's kind of like a party favor. I did a little bit of stand-up, mainly doing impressions. I wouldn't do that full time, because I feel like I don't have anything to say as a comedian. Like, I think real comedians have a point of view, and they like a singer who's got to say something, but I don't feel that way about comedy. It's more of like this pain in the ass habit tick that I have, that my friends have to put up with, and family, poor people. So it's like anything distinct is kind of, no one's safe. But I think mimicry is kind of how I got started with singing. And I'd be like listening to Stevie Wonder, like, how's he doing that? And even if I couldn't do that myself, I'd be like, well, how, you kind of using your ear, and you're like, all right, trying to find the tone. And to actually act like professionally and get into, having to learn scripts and doing plays and things like that, I don't think I was really ever that high on the film biz as an audience member. I was one of those kids where the family, we were watching a film, I probably fucked off and, did something, like, because I was very active as a child. But I was obviously doing some kind of entertainment at school. I was very well behaved at home. And my mom, as soon as I was like 5 or 6 and in preschool or whatever it would have been, she would get one principal called her in and said, I got to talk to you about your son. My mom was like horrified. So we're actually very kind of, in a ways, formal. We're kind of like an old school, like socially as a family, like, good manners and what have you. And we were brought up that way. And so she's wondering, what the hell's Emmett doing that he's calling me in to talk about him? And he's like, well, he's a good student, but he's disrupting the class. And she's like, what? He's like, yeah, he's entertaining his peers. And she's like, what in the hell? Because I wasn't showing any of those signs at home whatsoever. And years hence, I was like, yeah, Mom, because I was happy. Like, when I'm happy, I'm actually kind of quiet, or I'm just shooting the shit, having a conversation. It's not like I'm not having to project. And I knew as soon as I went to school, I didn't want to be at school, man. I still remember holding on to my mom's, skirt or pant leg and crying. I remember that. And, I was like, fuck this. Something's wrong with this. I don't want to do this shit. And as soon as I, had to face the music and be in this awkward setting, the thing that unconsciously clicked was like, wait, I got a crowd. So that it was like, I think, a defense mechanism just to get through being in something that was unnatural, because at home is what I knew. I'm like, well, I'm cool with these people. I have a good relationship with my sister, with my parents. We have a healthy family, so, and extended family as well. So what I think of as family is like a good community. I'm like, this is whatever this shit is. This is new. This whole thing of like, I don't know you, what you don't even know. You didn't introduce yourself. Like it's just like, even as a little kid, I was like, this is some awkward shit going down. So that was definitely a way for me to kind of be cool with myself. I think it's like and so going into acting again, I had never taken it seriously, probably because it was something that I was doing quite a lot of in a social sense. I know Brando talks a lot about that. He said people are acting all the time. He said when there's someone's trying to blow him up saying you're the greatest thing, he's like, listen, you're acting all the time. This thing, but it's kind of true, and I think in a certain respect. But it was when I started reading Shakespeare, I was like, ooh, this shit is tight. I was like, I want to. There's something like very musical because it's not regular speech. It's abstract. It's poetic. It goes on and on and on. There was something about it I found really, really fascinating, and so I started like memorizing because it feels kind of like working on a song. You're not singing, obviously, you're not singing lines, but there is something more operatic about it. And I was like, I dig this. And so that actually kind of what made me consider it more of a professional or a serious occupation. Obviously now I do. I don't care whether you're doing, it's like the shows I was on, like, TV, it's all hard work. But at the time, being an angry young rock and roller, I was like, writing it off. So Shakespeare and understanding theater made me go, oh, damn, this is a real craft. And everything's a craft. So, but that was something that took hold much later. I think I was in England at the time. Wild story. I was in a glam indie rock band called the Dirty Disco. And we were like it was pre-Lady Gaga with a male lead. I was Ziggy Stardust with a gold tip mohawk, playing drums, nice. Click, and playing in front of lots of stoned youngsters. It was an amazing time. We had great time. And but it was like, I think right around that time, my sister she was always interested in directing and acting. And we learn a lot from each other because she'll listen to lots of different music. And I get a lot through osmosis, or if there's something that she's digging, some TV show, even if I'm not going to sit down and watch it, I'd be like, oh, what's that? And, and so I think she was studying or looking to get into one of the bigger schools there in England. And that's, because we were living together at the time at a flat in London. And I'd be, always just kind of like hearing different things and getting different ideas about art. And that kind of made me think of like, oh, maybe it's something to try out. I think it probably came up at an important time where I felt musically a little confused. I think that's why it was a bit more of an arresting thing for me just to consider like what acting would be like. I think I found it frustrating being a youngster. I was still like of age at clubs in the States. I was like gigging like Cookie knows, like I was like, 17. And half the time, you have a little stamp on your wrist and you have to wait outside before you play. And I'm like, well, I kind of want to get to know, like hang out. I mean, sometimes some clubs would let me, shoot the shit after, but it felt sometimes a little, it wasn't organic. And that's actually what brought me to England in the first place, because I was like 20. It's like, oh, well, it's been 2 years since I was legal there. And just to kind of get involved, I thought there was something important to that at the time. And being in England, and it's definitely more of the culture is the regular culture. Lots of people can act really well, as it turns out in England. Like you kick over a trash can in Surrey and some local theater thing is actually really tight. Like the quality is great. And I don't know, it's just something that's in their blood there. It's a tradition they have. And I saw a bit of theater. I remember taking like an improv class years before, I think right before I went to England, actually. And I wasn't so sure about it because my sister got me into it. And when I was in the middle of the thing after, she's like, what do you think of that? I was like, well, I don't like that there's a kind of like a roadmap you have to follow. Like there's a scene or there's a character, there's like a very specific set of things you have to kind of tick off. And to me, at my experience creatively before that really was all like music was just kind of this kind of, you feel like you're just jumping off the high board, and so acting already from the beginning, I had my kind of doubts about it because it felt more like I had to think about, I just couldn't just let stuff happen. And you can obviously, but there's a different way of doing it. And what got me out of acting after a while was auditioning for TV and feeling that kind of limitation of like, oh, I got to play this exact person. but maybe not in the way that I think is actually interesting, more in the way that the show is made. And you have to honor the way a series runs, even kind of the style of how people deliver things. And I'm kind of jumping to the end game there, but just I think I always dig people that do things at a very, very high level. So I got into like a lot of old school cinema. I grew up on that, you know, especially my mom, she's an old movie buff. So I know all the old stuff. Right. But it was when I started digging up like Laurence Olivier, like probably kids don't even know about, like old school shit, him doing like Hamlet. I was like, what is this? There's another one of those moments, like watching James Brown or hearing Sting, you know, it's like, it's something that is so incredible that you respect it, even though you don't know what the hell you're watching. And
did he do Lawrence of Arabia?
That was Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole. Oh, that guy was. Yeah, sorry, I got them confused. But another amazing actor of his day. But yeah, sorry to cut you there.
No, not at all. But it's funny you should say, because with the guys like Peter O'Toole, Richard Harris, that whole generation after Olivier, actually, Richard Burton, Oliver Reed. Those guys, they were known as the Hellraisers, and that's the shit I love, man. Because on camera, they are not. There is no, at least to me, it's like they're ripping it up. There is no. They're not trying to be anything. They're trying to leave a piece of themselves. That's what I feel, and that's the thing I love in all art. And it worked exactly like I grew up on that film, Lawrence of Arabia. You know, when I was of age, I remember seeing that for the first time, going, "Holy shit, what is this?" And that dude, yeah, there was nothing half-assed about his performances ever. If you ever watch, for those that are interested in, he did Beckett, and then he did a sequel to that called The Line in Winter. And it's probably some of the most just bone-rattling acting. You're like, it's not like to see someone go to 10 but be real on camera. It's a wild thing. You're like, what? Holy shit. And
all right, so you're a movie buff, right? You say you're a movie buff. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few different decades here, and I want you to give me your favorite movie from each decade, if you can. Okay, so can I go far? I'll go. I don't want to go too far back. So let's start from the '60s. Okay. Okay. So if you could
go further if you want to.
No, I know that, but I'm
the 60s.
Yeah. So give me one movie from the 60s that really stands out to you. What was, and it could be anything. It could be comedy, it could be, sci-fi, drama, action. I don't know how much real action they had back in the 60s, but there was some. I'm sure there was some, It could be a blaxploitation flick, anything. I don't care what it is. Like, give us one movie from the 60s, and then we'll move to the 70s.
Great. Okay. So I think for the 60s, it's tough, but I'm going to have to go with Dr. Strangelove.
Okay.
Like Stanley Kubrick flick.
Yeah.
Peter Sellers.
Amazing. Dude, Peter Sellers is one of my favorite. First of all, people don't know Mr. Bean took his whole thing from Peter Sellers, because if you remember all the Pink Panther movies, there was not much of him talking. It was real physical comedy, and one of my Peter Sellers. Rest in peace.
Total freak. Yeah, young James Earl Jones is in there. You got George C. Scott, who I think is
another
Titan film. One of his best, I think one of the best performances ever. George C. Scott and Patton. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah. When I was little. But one of my favorite movies that really stood out to me when I was old enough to kind of absorb and remember was Taps. And George C. Scott and Taps. I mean, you had Sean Penn in there, Tom Cruise, Timothy Hutton. I mean, it was just an amazing movie. But I remember as a kid, because I wanted to be there too with them. Like, let's go,
Oh man, yeah. And I think Kubrick in general as a director, he didn't play by any of the rules. And Dr. Strangelove is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And I could see people, maybe some audience members at the time may not know that they may not get the joke. And that's also kind of endearing about his films, that you kind of have to know what he's trying to do with it. But the fact that Sellers plays 3 characters in it, definitely a roadmap for what Mike Myers was going to do as well. Bold characters, and you can't recognize him from one to the next. And that guy, oh man, he was in The Godfather 1. He plays one of the generals. He's hilarious too. There's a whole it's really well. The cast is very full, but it's like it doesn't feel like a Muppet movie. It feels like very organized. And that one I think kind of set a precedence for how films were made because it destroyed all the convention. And I know the 60s in general, like that's when they were just starting to pull out all the stops, like they post-war generation, you can see earlier time, like if you dig Brando or James Dean, they were changing things, but some of that convention was going in a certain direction. But I feel like by the time the 60s showed up, it was just like, all right, we're just going to go bananas.
Keep it moving. Okay, let's keep it moving. Let's go to the 70s. We're pushing forward here, folks. All right, so what movie stands out to you? What 70s movie is like
it better be fucking Caddyshack. No, I'm just saying.
Well, I actually love Caddyshack. The 70s, man. Okay, well, yeah, this is more of a lighter flick, but it's one of those films that has a performance that I won't forget. And just talking about Oliver Reed, he was in what they did, the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers. It was actually a dual, it was a double thing that they've split up, right? And that's, again, kind of lighthearted, and you could see it's like very kind of Keystone Cops in today's perspective in terms of action. A little bit rough around the edges, but there is a scene. There are quite a few more serious scenes, especially that are around Ollie's character. I guess he plays Ethos. He plays the tortured one, and you got Faye Dunaway playing his former love interest. There's some just fucking fiery scenes between those two in the second film. So it would be the Four Musketeers. That was done mid 70s? I want to say like 74 or something like that.
I couldn't tell you.
Something like that. And I just remember seeing these eyes when he confronts her. They've been estranged, kind of husband and wife, and he finds out that she's actually a spy and she's actually trying to kill the people that he works with, right? People he cares about. But when he feels this kind of double betrayal from someone that he's like really loved, but when he walks in the room, and I've never seen anyone have such like intent in their eyes. I remember going like, holy shit, man. And what I loved about his performance in particular was he would be almost like whispering, like so quiet, and then erupt. But you didn't know when. You just knew like, oh my God, this guy's something's really serious is gonna happen. And I think that's hard to do in film. I think it's hard to find an organic a spontaneity. It's hard to having been in front of the camera, and when you're working live, it's a very technical medium. Cut, wait, fix this, it's just you feel like you're making film the whole time. And so to get something that's that raw, where you really feel like this guy is like possessed, and that's a standout for me.
Yeah, Raquel Welch also stand out in that movie. Yeah. Beautiful lady. 1975, the Four Musketeers. All right, let's move to the 80s, because the 80s we had so many cool movies. You had, I mean, look, the Eddie Murphy movies, and you had John Hughes movies. I mean, there was a plethora of stuff. So let's hit the 80s, bro.
All right, I'm gonna have to go with Raiders.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Okay, great movie, dude. Great movie. Okay, what stood out to you in that movie? Like what scene really was like? I mean, there's so many good ones, man. Like when with the other guy with the ark, and he's like, I forget who the actor was, the guy with the gray hair, and he's going through that whole speech explaining to Harrison Ford's character about the ark itself, and just I forget that part, but just that stood out to me. And then the beginning with the that scary guy, with the thing that imprinted, burned to the hand with what was her name? Margaret. Who's that? The lead actress.
Yeah. God damn it. Marion.
Yeah. I forget Margot. I forget her. Anyway.
Yeah.
Just that scene stands out to me too, with the fire, and he had to grab the thing and it burnt. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah.
What stood out to you in Raiders of the Lost Ark? Because fucking classic, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's shot, as I learned years later, it's shot in the style of a 1930s film. I think Spielberg actually hired a DP that was from that time period who's still around. And so apparently he shot that whole flick kind of in black and white, although it's not printed that way. We watch it in color, but it's actually meant to be viewed in black and white if you wanted to, because he wanted to get, and I know a lot of filmmakers that were in that golden age in Hollywood, like the Spielbergs and that crew, they adored the 30s. And there's a lot to be said for that. Another conversation, but basically he wanted to get that. There is definitely a kind of a much freer, which is not something that you would think of an earlier time period in the States. There's a lot of films that are pre-censor in the 30s, that the censor started clocking 34, but it wasn't really heavy until 35. There is this kind of space in American cinema pre-censor that it feels modern now. Yeah, the outfits are different and the speech is a little different, but no one's like, hey, how you doing? What's the word on the street? There was none of that like 1940s, 50s brass of like pushing. Yeah. Everything was like quiet, it was focused, and there was a pace. And when I started finding films, I'm like, God, there's like a really like some gold here. So it's no surprise to me that if I got that right, that Spielberg was really trying to go for a 30s feel. I know the story takes place in the 30s, but
yeah.
He wanted even the film work to be as close to that time period as possible.
That's amazing. Oh, but by the way, okay, so the lady was Karen Allen. I don't know why I thought it was Karen Allen, but you had great Alfred Molina, who was like, he was in that movie, and I mean, he must have been like super young in that movie. That guy played in X-Men or like a Fantastic Four. Yeah.
Octopus, was it?
Yes, one of those.
Doc.
Yeah, Dr. Octagon. Yeah. I don't remember. Anyway, and then the guy who I was talking about was Ronald Lacey. He played the character with but check this out. Okay, so Frank Marshall, Penny Marshall's brother, right? Who's like produced and wrote so much. He was in that movie also. And then another fact is Denholm Elliott. Maybe you don't know the name because a lot of actors we don't know their names, we just know their faces, which is weird that we don't remember everybody's names. That we're like, oh, I remember that guy. That was the butler from Trading Places. He was in that movie also.
Yeah, Denholm Elliott, monster actor.
Yeah, incredible.
He's the best. You got John Rhys Davies in there.
Yeah. I'm looking at the cast listing right now.
It's stacked. And that scene between Marion and Belloc in the tent when she's trying to leave and she tries to get him sauced.
Yeah.
They just start laughing. Like that is so difficult to get right, because laughter is probably, I would say it was almost harder than crying on camera to make it like, and laughing like it's
to make it legit, thing. Right?
Yeah. The way they did that, like literally bursting out laughing like that, it being so off the cuff. I remember as a kid, the film always just blew me away, just kind of front to back when you just think about it, right? It's like, action. Harrison Ford, also what's cool about him, he's a tough guy, but he has this vulnerability. And when I didn't see that as a kid, but as I got older and I started kind of trying to break it down a bit, I was like, he actually shows fear and concern a lot more than you would think, even though he's the man. Yeah. I was like, well, that makes sense, because he's reeling us in. He's saying, I'm a human being. I'm a human being, right? Yeah. And the guy I was talking about for that scene, he was wearing that yellow hat with the black band around it, but I just remember because they were in the desert, they were going in for the Ark of the Covenant. It was Paul Freeman was the guy's name. He's still alive, 82 years old, man. Paul Freeman was the actor of that scene. I wish I could maybe find it. Okay, but go back and look, because that scene was the scene that I'm talking about is super powerful. His speech is just. It kind of hit you, and his performance was great during that time. And he was the villain, really. He was one of the villains because he was trying to steal the Ark. He was trying to get it, and do it, be it, as convincing as possible. Okay, yeah, great movie so far. Okay, so where are we at? We're a 90s. What? I don't even remember the 90s, man. I don't remember the 90s, bro. Yeah, shit. Good luck. Good luck with this one. There are a lot of fun movies like in the 90s, like as a time period. There was a lot of action. Like the 90s were real good. Like if there's like some
Goodfellas,
Oh, Goodfellas is so good.
Schindler's List.
Yeah. Ooh, was Casino? This Casino was 80s. Yeah, late 80s. I'm
No,
thinking.
Casino. No, I think Casino was after Goodfellas. Casino, I think, came
Oh,
after.
okay.
But you had, what was that? Goodwill Hunting,
Killer film.
Tombstone,
Yeah, there's a lot.
Jacob's Ladder, bro. That's a fucking movie right there.
And even the softer, like the more fun family shit, like Mask of Zorro is a killer movie. That
Mask of
film,
Zorro.
it's Zorro, and it's like whatever, this kind of like fantasy thing, but it's Tony Hopkins in that and Antonio Banderas. I mean, the whole cast, but it's a really great. It's so well told. That dude who made he actually made the revamped Casino Royale. Martin Campbell, I think, the director. Casino, when they did my man there, when they redid the whole Bond series, Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig, great actor too.
I remember being like, there's this kind of like great storytelling from this director, and it's no surprise that he did Mask of Zorro and others. I was like, oh shit, well this guy really knows what he's doing. Even like shit like Men in Black, like Tommy Lee Jones. I'm a big fan.
Great, great.
Tommy Lee's just like Will Smith. Like I thought Will Smith was a shit when I was a kid, and just like so.
Men in Black was a great movie, man.
It was really good. Both of them I think are pretty decent. Although the second one came out in the 2000s. But like an all out like 90s thing. Okay, no, maybe I got one. Maybe
bro, there were so many movies, man. There were so many good movies, bro. I'm curious to know what you come up with.
It's a dude that graduated from the school I went to in Philly. I think the film came out in 98 or 99, Sixth Sense. M. Night Shyamalan.
The Sixth Sense. That was Haley, that kid with I See Dead People.
I See Dead People. Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Dude, even whatchamacall was in that. One of the Wahlberg brothers was in that. Donnie Wahlberg.
Donnie Wahlberg.
In the beginning scene. Haley Joel Osment.
Haley Joel Osment, yeah. He was so young and so on point.
What year was that? That was 1999. Dude, you just made it, bro. You just made it to almost to the 2000s, bro. You're borderline.
I bring that up, I think, because of the impression it had in terms of something that was being different about films. Like you said, like it's hard to pick. Like the 90s was so good. Like there's so many goddamn films.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to be like, I don't even know if there is like the standout 90s film. But in terms of being the age I was, and then seeing something that was totally different, and also the fact that Guy graduated from the same school I went to, and he actually came to the school after the Sixth Sense. I think they got him back just to talk to the kids, and I asked him this like really heavy question in front of everybody, and he was kind of looking at me like, "What the fuck?" But I asked him kind of why he wrote. I used the word motive, but I used it in an archaic sense. It used to mean kind of a reason being, not like a criminal offense. But I was like, what was your motive behind writing the thing? And he kind of froze on me in front of the whole school. He was like, he kind of gave me this roundabout answer. But what I was digging for was something about, because in a way it's a very spiritual film. It's like a cathartic film. It's like a film about healing, because it has all that shock factor and horror and fucking freaking out, setting you up and shit like that. But it's actually like a human story. It's about a guy trying to, find his, go back home in a way. And so I kind of knew enough about that as a youngster, or I knew there was something a little bit deeper about it. So I wanted to know why. And I've later heard that he's admitted in his own words that he feels like he makes spiritual films. I think that's a quote that he said. So I was like, come on, Shyamalan. I was cool, right? You could have said something similar, but maybe it was just the way I put it. I don't know. Maybe I phrased it funny. But that was a cool thing, because I thought it was also shot in Philly. It was like my hometown. And that's why I usually say, even though I've lived everywhere, Philly's the longest I've been anywhere. I still feel the East Coast. I can't get it out of me,
East is the best, bro.
East, people are real, man. You know where you stand right away. And people spit it out. And so even like decade, being in LA didn't change me. Once your formidable years, if you've been on the East Coast,
sure,
you always have that. But the fact it was all shot there, and Bruce Willis, his role was more understated, being the big action guy.
Right.
like the biggest action dude, really, probably, of his,
Definitely a different role for him.
different role. He was so natural and quiet, and I thought he killed it. Like he was so connected. I was like,
Yeah.
man, and the guy can do tons of shit. I've seen him in comedies, can play
Great.
all
Yeah.
kinds of roles.
He was in one of my favorite movies, 12 Monkeys. Also, he played a great role in that.
Great film.
Yeah.
Great film.
Madeline Stowe, one of my favorite actors. I mean, I loved Madeline Stowe. She's so pretty. Okay, I want to end it with the 2000s because we're running way over time, and it's as old people like Cookie are very tired. And
You're on EST.
yeah. Real quick, I want to just give a station identification since we're at the top of the hour. This is Jus Riffin. We do this every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, powered by Rug Radio. Tonight, we got Emmett Lee Stang on the stage with us, hanging out. We've been having conversations about music, touring with Billy Idol and Toto and Steve Perry, and his music and his new video Angel and song Angel. And now we're into the movies, into acting. So we're just having such a great time. And thank you again, Emmett, for spending time with us. But let's end this segment here with the 2000s. I'm gonna give you my favorite movie from the 2000s. One, I wouldn't say my it's like, because I love movies, man. I can't really pick one, but one that is is in my top three is a movie called Battle Royale. And this was, I want to say 2011. And it's based on, it's a Japanese, I think I want to say it's Japanese. It's a Japanese movie, Asian foreign film. And Battle Royale, basically what it is, there's a school in Japan. When you're in kindergarten, all the way to high school, you're with the same kids, unlike in the United States, you might have different classmates as you're moving along schools. But so they keep all the same kids. And what they did is there was this is obviously fictional. And then there was some classes that were bad, terrible students, bad talking to BSing with their teachers, whatever. So what they did was they did like a lottery, and they put all these bad classes into this mix. And whoever got pulled out, they would take all of those kids and they would put them on an island, and they would put a thing around their neck, and they had to stay within zones for certain things. Otherwise, it blew up and they got killed. But the craziest thing about this movie is that they all had to kill each other. Whoever the last person was that was left on the island was allowed to go home. The parents signed for it. It's one of the most amazing movies that you'll ever see. The director's old school dude, like done so many like classic Asian films. One of the girls, Go-Go, she played Go-Go in Kill Bill. If you remember Kill Bill, she had the spike ball she was swinging around. She played Lucy Liu's like right-hand man, Gogo Shibari. She was in this movie as a actress. Just there's so many great, you'll see some faces in there that you might recognize. But just the concept of that movie where the classmates had to kill each other to get off the island, and they gave them like these random bags, and somebody might have got a gun, someone might have got a pot, to cook with. So it was like really awesome. It's called Battle Royale, and if you've never seen it, go check it out. That's my favorite movie. I had to say it because I just don't think a lot of people have seen it, but you should definitely put it on your list. Battle Royale.
I'm writing it down, man.
Battle
Royale.
I'd love to hear your take on it too, because it's one of those real like fun movie. Wow. I mean, it's a crazy concept, but it's a movie, so. Yeah,
exactly. It was almost like what you were saying earlier. Like, can anything be sung? The short answer is yes, and it's like, can there be any topic? Can it survive as a film? Yes. I think it's all execution. That sounds badass.
I like it. All right. So what's your movie, your pick of the 2000s? It could be up to 2025, obviously, because
Okay. Good news, because I'd have to go with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino. That one, nice. I think, just because it was like a revival of what I love about films. Different for him. It's a slow burn. I saw it live first with an audience in Vancouver. They were all just like shitting themselves. Like they were just screaming at the screen, having a ball, which was great. So it was like a very Tarantino like fan base, Scotiabank Theater. It was great. But I've since revisited it and bought it, and I'm like, man, it's just so voyeuristic. Like I've lived around a lot of those places that they depict, obviously not in the same time period.
Yeah.
But there's nostalgia in it. There's it's a lot of the music that I love that I grew up, you know, because I kind of grew up like I was in a different time period. And the way it captured the film biz, which I obviously knew a bit about. Just, I don't know, like also kind of the general message of, I think Tarantino really loved, like you get a sense of what he loved about the 60s and how awful the Manson murders, like how that changed culture.
Yeah.
And besides the usual revenge in his film, it almost felt like, it's like really Tarantino saying like, you know, like why did this have to happen, you know? And I don't know, it kind of, it really captured a time in American culture where, yeah, even though I didn't live during those times, I wasn't around yet, right? Till I'm an 80s baby, but it felt, you know, from looking at archive footage and hearing stories, I'm like, he's capturing it in 2 hours, you know, time frame. He's capturing a lot of the essence of that. Yeah. And it's certainly because of the artists that I love and the cinema, is, you know, it's like an iconic time. And so for me, and also the time in which he made the film, I felt like we were getting a little bit more and more starved for just like what I would call, you know, it's a hard term to use, but pure filmmaking, someone who just wants to tell a story. They're not worried about commerce. You know, it's just, it's a problem. It's an issue in all businesses, of course, but it's like, I know Tarantino enough, not personally, but just through his work, where he's just trying to make a film that he loves. That's what I get. That's what I get from him. And it's like that film, he was like, no, this is what I'm doing and this is what I dig. And there's also the humor in it, as usual, his witty banter, but like it has pace, and that it doesn't force anything. And for me, it was like, as a kind of like a film snob, it just clicked for me.
Yeah, great movie. And Tarantino always, you know, has fun with the endings, because obviously the ending wasn't actually like that. But in Tarantino's ending, he fucking killed him, and that's how it went. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what should have happened. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to give a honorable mention to Rob Zombie, because House of a Thousand Corpses and those movies that he was doing during that time, I felt like I felt that those were pretty classic too. If you've ever seen those 2003 horror films, you had Sid Haig in there, which was in old school, like, you know, black exploitation flicks. Zombie's wife was in that. She played an amazing character, like just very evil, you know, like, but such good acting. And if you've never seen those movies either, go check those out. I gave you two good ones to watch: Battle Royale, an Asian film, and then House of a Thousand Corpses. And check out the other movies that Rob Zombie actually did around that time, because they were based around that. And just, it'll bring you back to a time to where, like, if you're into scary movies, you know, where scary movies actually were great. Like, you know, the original Friday the 13th and Michael Myers, Halloween. They just don't make them like that anymore. They're too, like, you know, I don't know, giddy, you know, if that makes any sense. But I feel like this had like that 60s, 50s, 60s, like okay, like you were talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, how it had that feel. These movies, these House of a Thousand Corpses and these other movies that Rob Zombie actually did, have that feel also. So I think you'll genuinely like it. I'm not a big fan of scary movies, but these were like, you know, done really, really well.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, man.
Yep. Awesome stuff. So look, man, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for like hanging out with us, because we're an hour and 15 minutes over. We normally end at 10, but like, you know, you have a plethora of knowledge, and just, there was so much to talk about. And I feel like sometimes we don't get enough time in with our guests. You know, we don't want to keep them here too long, but thank you again for, like, seriously taking time and hanging out with us and explaining your story. And great to know you. You're a real dude, a true mensch. And I love it. You know, keep that, you know, Don't lose the chutzpah, bro. Don't lose it. Just
Can't do it. Can't do it.
keep it moving always, bro.
That was a
So
real,
thank you.
real
Okay.
pleasure being here. I got to tell you.
We're real quick before we go. I've been putting it up on the screen for people to follow you and stuff, and also to buy your merch. Go ahead and plug anything you want to plug. Where people can find you. What you go for it. The mic is yours.
Yeah, Emmett Lee Stang at all of the above. Like, I don't have a website, but Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, I have a link tree. Usually I have a link tree on each of those platforms, and it's one link. You click that and you'll see the list of all the things, including the merch, which is brand new. And I've been excited to get some people getting part of the Stang fam. It's a little brand that I'm pushing on there. Not just always the face, but I was trying to think of something like a little phrase. It's something I've been using spontaneously. So the Stang fam is showing up, buying hoodies, and yeah, I'll be working for those that are looking for a specific social media platform. I'll be working YouTube a lot harder, as I really feel it's the king for music and for certainly the aspect ratio of video, but that's where videos can exist without getting cropped. And I'll be sharing everywhere as usual, but I'll be focusing especially there in the future.
That's right. It ain't no thing, and I can't even say it ain't no thing if it ain't got that Stang. All right.
There you go.
We're flipping it. Okay, so you could check out Angel also, everybody that's listening. Thank you also to the people that are out there listening as well. Abstract, YouTube, X. You can find Angel on Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer as well. Make sure you check out.
Spinning tomorrow night at the Gold Club in Philadelphia. You'll hear it.
Hey,
Let's go.
That's what's up, man. All right, thank you, Cookie, my guy. Thank you. I appreciate your time as well, and thank you everybody for listening. This has been another episode of Jus Riffin with Emmett Lee Stang. Thank you again, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back. Also, we got something new that we're doing. We are streaming episodes of the past live 24/7 on the Jus Riffin channel on X. So at Jus Riffin, I'll put it up here real quick so you can check it and follow us as well. Give us a follow. Also, man, smash that like button. It helps us. I don't know what. We'll figure that part out as the time comes. But hit the smash the like button. Leave a comment. I don't know. Subscribe. Do all that good stuff. And also subscribe to Emmett Lee Stang's YouTube as well. And go check out his videos, man. Go support. Appreciate y'all. Peace. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Jus Riffin. Tuesday night, 8:30 EST. Know where we be. Jus Riffin. Special guest and tech and talk. A musicology. Jus Riffin. Coming to you live at the same time. Here every week. Jus Riffin. Jump in the room. Let's chop it up. It really ain't that deep. Jus Riffin.